Welcome to What We Watch. Tweet it out. Let everybody know. We in here. I can't wait to talk about this episode with you guys. If you want to speak, tap the mic and come on up. All right. All right. Welcome, welcome. Aren't we so excited? They played my girl Tweet in this episode. I love to see it. I love that for us. Welcome to What We Watch. Follow What We Watch Film TV. I think we got one more episode after this. One more episode of Euphoria after this. One more What We Watch Euphoria space to talk about everything we love about this show and the characters that be pissing us off and the characters that we stan. So this episode was called The Theater and Its Double. And I love that because Lexi went off. So, welcome to the stage, Sapio Mies. If you want to come up and talk, let us know. I'm really going to start us off real motherfucking easy. How did you feel about the episode? What was one of your first feelings when you walked away from the episode?
I Go ahead, Sapio. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I just really liked how creative it was. I mean, even the way that it opened up with the overture was really, really dope. And then, having been a former theater kid in some capacities myself, I really appreciated the idea of a high school theater or any theater having that truly that type of budget for set design and just creative use of creative direction. Like that shit went crazy. Like,
Right?
and to inhabit a theatrical space from a television screen is already a feat, and we've seen people do it in a variety of ways. Like we kind of had that conversation when we talked about Macbeth, but that was a really great
Mm-hmm.
use of theater. And then to the last point, I like the title as well because it's the double is the theater of the mind, right? So you have these people that are interacting with their
Themselves.
own thoughts and feelings
Yeah.
about
Mm-hmm.
those images and how they're looking at the impact she's had on them and seeing how it's impacting them as they're looking in real time at the theatrical impact that she's saying these events have had on her is like fucking phenomenal. I thought that was real dope.
I think it's so cool as a writer to watch them write a character into a show that you thought didn't matter or that you thought wasn't going to be that big. And bloop, yes, she is. So, I mean, it looks like we low key finna get. So, today is 2/22, 22, 22, 22, 22. And I don't know how many tweets y'all have seen, but I've seen so many about it. 22, congrats. The one, not the two. I was born on July 2nd, so that's fine. Two, we out here. Shout out to, being the two Tuesday, whatever. Like, very annoying, very annoying. Congrats to all of us. However, it looks like my girl Lexi's going to get two-part play. So, Mies, what you think, girl? What you think?
I am loving it. Anytime people kind of, so here's the thing. I think it is something that people regularly use, playing with time and like past and present and sometimes future. This was more past and present, and I think that the way they incorporated them into each other gave some really fucking amazing shots. So I'm always here for like the visuals, just in general, but it was also, I think that there's been a lot to process, right? So with all these different characters and everything they had going on, we've seen everyone is kind of at this point have their own little segment, right? We've sat with Kat, we've sat with Maddie, we've sat with Cassie, but now to sit with those people in the context of how Lexi perceived them, and also for her to be talking about for the play itself to be addressing like the past, like the layout of the friendships, like her and Rue being the friends, and then Maddie and Cassie being BFS, and Kat being, I think Kat was Maddie's friend that was just looped into the group but wasn't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily really friends with Cassie. It was just very interesting to see that. And so we got some of the past, we got some past history, and we also got specifically to see Lexi addressing the you know giving us more details about her past interaction with Rue's overdose. So I'm excited
Yes.
based on that past. I want to go ahead and shout out my favorite act from the play, which was obviously the gym. the boys in the gym. It gave me West Side Story. It gave me a little Chicago. It gave what was supposed to be given. So I was here for it. I went to an all girls school and definitely like musicals as a dance. I was a dancer. Musicals as a dancer were definitely the highlight of
Right.
some of my best high school experiences. So it was definitely I definitely feel Sapio on the theater kid, us getting a little shine, a little
I'm
moment.
so glad that the theater girls and the boys and the non-binaries are getting what they need.
Scene. Scene.
Nerves. Like, I love that because, like, and we can start talking about our favorite act as well. If you want to come up here and speak, a few notes. First of all, Twitter Spaces decided to change some things. So if you look at the bottom right, you'll see the heart and the plus sign. They took away my 100 emoji, so they
I
listened
do
to
miss the honey.
it and they took away some other things that because as Spaces host, we get to kind of provide a lot of feedback for Spaces. So now you'll see a series of hearts. I don't know. We might need to do something with the hearts. I don't know what these colors mean and what they want me to say or what they don't want me to say. But they took away my 100 emoji. So now if you hear anything you like, just go ahead and clap for us. Do the applause. Do the laughing. You can wave. You can change like the skin color of all the emojis now, which I guess is cool. But I really just don't know what these hearts are. But just so you know, like if you want to send a green heart, that's great. If you want to send a blue heart, that's also great. Just like, do whatever you want. But that's just housekeeping for the spaces today. But we're gonna get into it because I do have a favorite act as well. And I don't know if I want to say mine quite yet, but I think Mies is going to take us into that conversation very easily. I think that we should talk about one of our favorite acts. What I'm going to say though is that what I loved about this episode was the reactions we got from the characters in the audience. I was fucking living for that too because there's just there's so many beautiful themes and so many theatrical moments like the girls were saying about like this the way this episode was set up. And I think a lot of directors and a lot of writers might have written out like really sitting with some of these characters and following Cassie into the locker room or into the school and following Nate like they would have left those things out. And one of my favorite, like quiet is kept, my girl that Lexi's mom, she was really just a proud mom in that theater, and I lived for every time the camera cut her. She was like, I know that my girl crazy as hell, clearly, but my baby is up there putting on a show. And I was just like, this is giving me life. She was so excited. Everybody, Nate there stressed. Rue's like, what is going on? Maddie is like, this bitch? And meanwhile, her mom is just like, yes, like looking at it from an artistic standpoint and period, because that's what the girl deserves. Again, Shakespeare is taking notes at this time. If y'all have heard from Shakespeare, let me know because he has 24 hours to respond. So no, I'm just playing. But B Marie, baby, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so glad you brought up their mom because, like, there was something really beautiful, and I know people were comparing her to the mom from Mean Girls, which definitely vibes because she lets them drink and stuff. But you're so right. Like, you can say somebody's a bad mom or whatever from your own perspective because she let them do stuff or whatever. But there's something about her that she holds Cassie accountable. And she's also, in that same breath, able to support Lexi, which I think is something that a lot of parents aren't very good at. So she holds her own as a mom. That's just like something I wanted to comment on. But my favorite act would have to be everything that involved Rue. Somebody had tweeted, and I don't remember exactly who it was, but they were like, I really loved how Lexi captured or showcased how important Rue is to her. And I think with Rue being sober and her mom kind of giving up on her in that episode, and not really giving up on her, but telling
No, I
her,
know
like
exactly what
teaching
you
her
mean.
a
Right.
lesson, right? Teaching her, like, I can't sacrifice your sister for you, right? So I think Rue she's 18, you know, she's gonna be 18, she needs to be held accountable. And I think this is her mom's way of holding her accountable. But I think Lexi did her a huge service by showcasing their friendship and how important, regardless of the status of their current friendship, how important and pivotal Rue's position in her life was. I loved
And I
that.
really appreciate that perspective because my first of all, I was like, oh no, not y'all telling Rue's business. But I was like, well, this is not, Lexi was not telling nobody's business that nobody didn't already know.
Right.
And so at first I was like, oh no. But then I like, again, why I love the kind of supplemental seeing how the how the characters were reacting and the characters of the show, right? Very meta, very cool. But when we cut to Rue, it was like, okay, so Rue is like kind of shook like me, but also like this is a gentle way of showing a friendship and just showing me in these moments, but also like some of it was just like, oh my god, like you showed her doing like the drugs and you said it, and I was like, this is weird, but that was like the theme of the entire motherfucking play was like, I'm about to show y'all some of these conversations that I had as Lexi, who y'all thought wasn't paying attention, who was just in the background the whole time. And now I'm about to put on a show and let's see how you guys react. And I,
Mo,
yeah,
can I ask a question about like a factual question?
sure.
So I know that Lexi has mentioned in the past that she felt some remorse and guilt around not doing enough for Rue prior to her overdose. So was this particular moment that I think you were just kind of touching on it, and that's why I want to hop in. But when she was on the bed and like it was during the funeral and Lexi came into the room,
Right.
saw Rue doing the drugs, and then Rue like kind of passed out and she took the pills out of Rue's pocket. So was that what actually happened, or is that what she thought should have happened?
So interesting, because I would back up just a little bit before that. I think it's what actually happened, or maybe it's what I think it's what actually happened. Only because right before that, you saw the doubles of Kat and Cassie and who was it? Who was the other girl? I'm sorry, I forget. Maddie.
Maddie.
Kat, Cassie, and Maddie in there, and they were making fun of her, which to me was very on brand. To me, not making fun of her, but to me it was kind of on
They
brand.
were gossiping
And
and
they were
Lexi
like,
stopped them.
what's going on? And then Lexi was like, you guys shouldn't do that. I want to say that that was what actually happened. And to the point of the episode, even if it wasn't, I think it's important that she showed everybody in the public that that was the case, because according to Rue's face, I don't think she even remembered how that actually happened due to the fact that she was being on drugs. So, okay, but I saw a lot of hands up. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm right. Renee, go ahead.
Yeah, so I didn't think when Lexi said she could have done more, I don't think that scene was indicative of what did or didn't happen. And generally speaking, when people are like suffering from depression and mental illness and then they die by suicide or overdose, those are just the common phrases that people say like, "Oh my god, I should have done more. I should have done more."
Mm,
So, I think that was just like Lexi being a loved one who cares about a person who's
yeah.
suffering from a disease and then, wishing that they could have stopped it.
I think it did. I think it did happen though, because we don't know. We don't know. I don't think the show ever showed us. But I think if we're to believe that the other, kind of cuts to reality are real, then I feel like that one was real. Because they were showing some scenes that we've actually seen in the episodes prior of like what actually occurred when Rue and Gio were sleeping in the room together after she was going through her withdrawals or whatever the hell it was. So I was to believe that that was actually happening, and I love, love, love that. I love the rooftop scene too, because I think that we did see that in season one. Do y'all remember that? I feel like I was like, I do remember this rooftop scene, but they extended some of it. Lexi put some of the stuff in her play that we didn't see.
I
So
think it was a part of one of the character development episodes or for Rue. I
yeah,
remember them
really,
being showcasing their friendship, and I think I remember that because they had a little bit of the Fez thing
right,
because they were like, oh, she looks like Bob Ross, and then it made sense why she dressed up like Bob Ross for that Halloween.
exactly.
Right.
W. Carter and then Sapio, welcome to What We Watch.
Hi. One thing I wanted to point out is like how clear it was that Rue was the only one in that audience, like of their friend group, that enjoyed the play.
I
Like
love that. Yes, I
she
like.
seemed so
Good.
happy. Also, I'm so glad she showed up sober for the play. Um, and just was just there supporting her. She loved all of it. I also got the sense that Rue may have been the only one who kind of sort of knew what the play was about. Like maybe she was expecting, she knew what to expect going in.
I can affirm you in that because I don't know if y'all remember that she was talking about her play in episode 4, and they were cutting to some of like the actors in the director's chair, and they're like, "Is this? Wait, is this what?" And like you could just see the looks on their faces, like, "Wait, is this Cassie?"
She also said she was going to audition for it, and so
Yeah,
I think she has some involvement.
she
Yeah,
definitely
she
understood.
knew she knew what was going on. And she really just, I was so glad she was there to be present for her friend. Um, and
Period.
then also the conversation that Lexi has with Fez about the play was so endearing because this is very clearly a man who like cares about her art and like is fascinated with her, the way she thinks. Um,
Yes,
that
thank
was
you
just
for
so
saying that.
great. One thing I've been thinking about when it comes to Fez is these images of what I'm calling like healthy or softer masculinity. Something we also saw on Pose with, was it Angel's character? The one who was the one who was dating Indian Moore's character. Is his name Angel? Am I making that up?
I don't
No,
know.
Poppy.
Watch it,
Poppy. That's one, yeah.
but go ahead.
Yeah, like it's something I hope we see more of. Um and yeah, I'll stop there because I
No,
just,
I love that. I love that. And Sapia, you go next. I love that because you're right. And you know what the coolest moment was though, because there's like a quote unquote balance, right? Like when people say like that's here, when people hear softness and masculinity, right? Like our brains start turning. We're like, what does this mean? How do I apply this? And what is that? What is the spectrum? And I think about when they introduced Fez and Lexi's relationship, and he was so gentle with her, and then he went and beat Nate's ass. And I was like, that's how you fucking do it. Like, there's a gentleness, but also there's another part of it, okay, honey? And that's what we love. We love the duality of man, okay? Me personally, I had a good time with that. So I love that you brought it up.
yeah.
Uh, because speaking of artists and being, supporting your creative friends, like y'all are doing right now, thank you, I love y'all. Like Lexi was very much supported by her mom, and she wanted to be, Fez wanted to support her, and then like you were right, like Rue was supporting her friend in her play that like she didn't really, right, like remember the episode was like she didn't really kind of tell anybody she was doing this. All of a sudden she's a director, she's talking crazy to folks on set, like, so a lot of people were just like, oh, so it really was like, I'm just going to support my friend in her artistic endeavors. I don't know what the fuck she got going on, but here we are. So I really love that aspect. And this is just a beautiful, beautiful episode to me because the way that they also incorporated like 15 stories, one of them being Fez not showing up, we'll get there. But oh my God, this was a really, really well done episode just to incorporate that and have Lexi like look at the chair empty. I'm like, chef's kiss. This is beautiful. But go ahead, Sapio.
Yeah, I think for me there were a couple good scenes play wise, but for me, I've been looking for answers about Maddie's parents for like 2 years now. So I'm really glad that they gave us some insight and some context around how Massey and Cassie's friendship formed and why, Maddie kind of has to have had and developed a tougher exterior in general. You know what I mean? You kind of think about her home situation from a very young age, and then how they were also, again, through Lexi's perspective, because Lexi's perspective is key. And I think what she said was like vindicating for all the, oh, you're so intimidating girls everywhere, right? When she was just like, oh, when I first met Maddie, she was so confident and so sure of herself, and made me not trust her. And it's like, I think that for girls that are in Maddie's position, or for the Maddies of the world, it's so nice to have somebody understand and then vindicate you later with saying that no, like, you know what I mean, it was really me that was fucked up. Like, she was a beacon on my own insecurities in a way. And I learned a lot from kind of just being around her and understanding how she dealt with her own. So I thought that was wonderful. I did like, again, just the I liked when Lexi saw herself as what she thought she would be in terms of like following in the trajectory of her older sister. I thought that was really, really dope. I like the way that the mother was reacting, because my first thought was, damn, why she do her mama like that? Why she keep on having these boys play her drunk ass mama? But I
And
thought
then
that
you
that was
cut to
so
the mom
funny.
and she's like clapping. And I'm like,
Right, but she's loving like every bit of it. And it's like, but she's also shook, right? And she's also moved by like, it's like she could see the endearment. I just think that that's, again, to whoever's point was making it, like, that's a mother that understands the language of her daughter, you know what I mean, and can see and still
Mm,
perceive, like, the
yeah,
beauty of it. Like,
yeah.
it's deadpan, it's sarcastic, it's, you know, also caricature, but it's a lot of love in all of those portrayals. And then the best thing I think that was really, and this is like such an important conversation piece, especially as siblings, because siblings oftentimes do get different versions of their parents, and especially when you're a younger sibling, a lot of times you tend to get, in a lot of cases, the best version of your parents because you got the more refined version, the more financially stable. But sometimes, you know, older siblings get the better version of a parent because they get the version of a parent before whatever happened to the parent.
Shout out to siblings.
That, yeah, yeah, you know, kind of pushes the parent off hill. So to talk about like how you know, Cassie and Lexi's, you know, understanding and reflection of one event, the car ride, was so drastically different, but then use that as a macrocosm for the conversation of experiences in parenting with their fathers, which then I think explains kind of like why Cassie is the way she is romantically in the relationships, and why Lexi kind of is the way she is in relationships. Like, the
Right.
impact that he had on them was so vastly different, but such an important two sides of the same coin. And I said that in another, and I said that before in this room, but like, yeah, like, you know, her and her sister are truly two sides of the same coin, but they're two very drastic ends of the spectrum. And I think that that was a wonderful way to display what that looks like and what that means.
Right. And I think it's beautiful what you're saying, because what we watch has definitely called like a lot of the stuff that we're seeing. And I just love that this group is paying attention and that we're appreciating the art that we're seeing and experiencing, because we really did. Like, I know I tweeted too. I was like, we finna get Lexi in here. Like, Lexi's gonna have some things to say. And I love that they didn't make her look silly. They didn't make like not only did they not make her look silly and mean, but they had a whole dialogue where she was talking to Fez, and it was like that was a really poignant dialogue to me, right? Because I've always talked about like no one cares about intention when the result is what it is, right? And so for her to just have that conversation with Fez, like, hey, do you think people are gonna like think that I'm trying to be mean? And he's like, yeah, like I don't know, like it maybe, like, do you know what you're doing in the play? And it's like she was really just kind of looking for that, like, it's obvious that I'm stepping out on some people's business and I'm stepping out of my comfort zone and I'm doing things that people may not expect because I really didn't warn them about this. But like, and then I love the line where she was like, well, I'm not trying, I don't intend to be bad or whatever the hell she said, but like, will they know that I'm not trying to be bad or will they just think I'm trying to be bad anyways? And I was like, yo, she's spitting right now. And it was in a kind of endearing way because the play hadn't started yet. And that's why, again, I fall back on how important it was to me for us to cut to the audience and see how everyone responded and see how Rue felt about the drug scenes and the funeral scene and see how her mama felt about some of those scenes and see how Cassie felt. I think I wanted to see Cassie suffer just a little bit respectfully. So that was cool. But Kyra, go ahead.
In the words of the late great Whitney Houston, "Oh my Lord, have I waited for this day?"
Okay, period.
Because that Lexi, because I was Lexi in high school, so seeing what she did, and I was like, somebody's gonna get. My friend Chanel did a parody of the FBI. I mean, not the IRS looking into the school board fraud of how Lexi was able to get that budget.
That's so cute. I love that.
Yeah, and because if you've ever worked in the arts in school, you know even the good schools have like a paper thin budget. So I was like, yo, she got all these sets.
That budget, right?
It was amazing. But one thing I really loved about it was I had a flashback to when Kat was like, oh, you can afford to miss a few rehearsals. And Ethan was the play. Like, he was every pivotal male and some female characters in Lexi's life.
Let's talk about it.
And it showed that he was willing. He knew he had to be there for Lexi, but he's like, my girlfriend needs to talk to me, and it sounded urgent, so he was there. But it shows like kind of how Kat is low-key trash, and you see that Lexi knew what Kat was doing on the low and didn't dime her out. Lexi is the lowest of key friends and the most loyal out of all of them. And
I would like to speak for my girl Maddie, but go ahead.
no, I understand where you're going with that,
Okay.
but even like this is my love letter to Lexi.
Okay.
And I I understood where she was coming from at each turn, even though some of it may hurt. And like Leslie said to Rue, the truth will set you free, but first it'll piss you off, in the words of Lemon, because I think that's what Lexi's way of loving each one of those girls was telling the truth,
Mm,
whether or not the mirror shown what they liked back at them or didn't. I think that was her version of loving them through all the stuff that they went through
okay.
together and apart.
And
And
go ahead. Go ahead.
and I was very, I was happy with the way that it came out. I liked the nuance of it all. I liked how when they shot certain scenes, it melted so seamlessly into one of the actors versus the actual kids.
Right.
And I love that because you didn't know when it was going to be Cassie or Hallie, or you didn't know when it was going to be Marta or Maddie. And I love that because everybody was calling them the Wish version. I was like, no, this is what you do in a play. This is how casting works.
Period.
And I like that they showed that side of it. I had some predictions. Some of them came true.
You know,
On
always good space to flex. Go ahead. I was
Yeah, I had some predictions and some of them came true. I think next week they gave us kind of like the Real Housewives to be continued, which kind of made me mad because I was like, okay, Andy Cohen. Um, I think that Fez will always have somebody he loves get hurt instead of him, and that's going to be even more devastating for him that he's left there alone.
mm.
And that because it's either Ashtray and or Faye. It's either the
So,
betrayal of Faye or Ashtray's going to get got.
oh, no, not my babies.
And I'm really sad because I thought Faye was like
Those are my babies.
exactly because I thought Faye was like turning. I thought I was like, okay, okay, Faye, you gonna be real loyal to these boys after they've fed you and housed you and made sure. And she looks better than she did when she was with her boyfriend.
What I
But
what I
go ahead.
Right. What I took from that is that you see now, y'all better be careful with y'all boyfriends. Y'all boyfriends be the feds, and y'all boyfriends will be the downfalls and people that really took care of you. So be careful. I'm like, Faye is teaching the girls right now. The girls are about to learn. You better be careful with these men that you let in your life, because Faye had an idea of what was going on.
Exactly. No,
So
she's not an idea. She knows exactly
she
what's
knows
going
exactly.
on.
Exactly. Well,
And
when she first found out, she was like, "So you're cooperating with the cops?" He was like, "No, I'm just kind of helping them." She was like, "So
so
you're
you're a rat.
cooperating with it?" Like,
Yeah.
don't let these men
And
gaslight you.
what really got me was Ashtray, because of the environment he's grown up in, is hella intuitive. And I think like that's why again I think Elliot never shows up in the convenience store because Ashtray would recognize him and tell Rue or tell Fezco.
Mm.
And then I also think that I still think he's working for the ops too. Like I think they're all
Oh,
yeah, I think that Elliot is not who we think he is.
let's.
Uh,
Mm,
and I think he's working with old girl. And I think that little suitcase full of pills was Rue's.
okay.
I think they never got flushed, but that's on me. But if anybody has any questions, they
I
can look at my Twitter. But I
appreciate
liked the episode.
it. I want to go back to what you were saying about the
Hey,
scene.
can I say something real quick? The only
Sure.
reason why I wanted to be a speaker is just to say this. Hey, don't speak that kind of evil on my boy Ashtray. Just don't do that. That's all I wanted to say.
I know I'm with you. No, I rebuke it. I'm with you.
We love him, but that's
It's
how
looking
Sam
great.
works.
Is looking grim, right? No, I just want to go back to what you were saying about the seamless transition because you know me, cinematography, directing. It was just fucking beautiful to watch. Like, first of all, to get us this invested in a show for about 50 minutes is amazing, right?
And I thought it was going to
So,
be rocky too, to be honest, Peach. I thought it was going to be real rocky. I was like, oh, they're going to do a play inside a that's, and you know how complicated the writing that is, and
exactly.
shooting and acting that is.
And it was just
But I
really
enjoyed it.
it was really seamlessly done, and I love how we got to sit with some things like kind of Mies was asking earlier, like, okay, did this actually happen, or does this, like, at every moment, at every turn, there were at least 15 stories that we learned about in 50 minutes, and not once did we feel like there was lacking or there was like confusion because they set this up for us in the last 15 episodes, you know? So it was like, okay, oh, we're on Nate. Now we're on Cal. Oh, now we're on Maddie and Lexi. Now we're on Rue and Jewel. Okay, now we're on this. And it was like they were taking us so quickly through all these moments. But Miss Mama's Lexi, the director, was, you know, like she was able to tell these stories properly. She was able to tell these stories effectively. And I love where we, you know, we have these camera shots where we go from Cassie to Hallie, then back to Cassie. And we have the moments where the actual dialogue that Lexi had with Cassie is real and is seen, and then we cut to Cassie's actual real life audience perform or reaction to that, and then we go back to Hallie with her kind of drummed up performance. And remember, I'm saying this because remember when Lexi went back stage with Cassie, she was like, or with Hallie, excuse me, she was like, you did a little too much and you added a little too much here, tone it down or tone it this way or whatever. And I was like, there's that quote unquote theatrical aspect of presenting what actually happened from Lexi's perspective. So yeah, Renee, go ahead.
I did want to say that. So I hopefully we get to talk about it. I do have problems with how Sam clearly hates Barbie, and and it's really really sad because of how Kat's character just got it. It's okay if Kat's character is actually supposed to be have a trash like personality or track cash, but it would have been nice if he would have walked us through it instead of just omitting things, because a lot of people were confused. They were like, did Lexi either Cat? And it was like, no, this was just like showing that Cat is now back doing this, but nobody else knows this. And also people seem to be confused about like the scene with like Nate and his dream.
Don't
People were
talk,
like, what?
don't
Did Cal sexually assault Nate? And I'm like, no, this is called having a dream, and your dream's fucking things up.
we're gonna talk about that because I saw a ton of tweets about the
I
Nate
want to know
drop,
what you think
and
about that, Peach.
I'm going to delicately walk everyone through that because I was watching it and I was like, this is beautiful. And I was like calling everything that was happening. I was like, this is a beautiful, beautiful scene. Wow, thank you so much. I love this. And then I went on Twitter and people were like, the fuck is going on here? I was like, wait, guys, wait, hold on. Let me tell you what's going on here. So I was like, I'll do it in the space. Sapio, go ahead.
Yeah. I just wanted to say that I also really appreciated. Well, because first of all, my first impression of the whole play was like, wow, Lexi was really in her Tay Diggs and the best man bag in terms of just like, you know, writing this book or writing this production and just fucking everything up. But I thought it was really hard how very much like Tay Diggs, she has those doppelganger names of the characters, right? So Rue being Ruby and Jules, or what's the other girl's name?
Matt,
What's her
Maddie,
double's name?
Marta.
No,
Marta.
What's
Maddie
Rue's
being what?
double's name?
Jade.
Jade,
Jade.
right,
Jade,
which is
Rue and
another
Jade.
gem, right. And then you have Maddie, which her name is, you know, probably something more ethnic. And so you have Marta, which is obviously epic, or, you know, something ethnic. And then you have Cassie, which I'm assuming her name is Cassandra. So that's also like it's a, you know, mythological character slash comet. And then you have Hallie, which like Hallie's comet and stuff like that. Like she really went in with the names and like the
She
associations.
did. Thank you for noticing that. She did. Lisan Al Gabe. Welcome. Sorry, babe. I can always say names.
No, it's
Welcome.
fine. It's not even a real name. I'm the Lisan Al Gaib.
Al
It's a
Gaib.
Dune
Oh, you've been
reference.
here before. You
It's
sound
yes, I love
wonderfully
this. I love you
familiar.
guys so much. I just wanted to say how I loved how the theater environment. Well, first of all, I got to comment on the budget just like everybody else because I was completely floored and dying laughing about that, high
Right.
school theatrical budget. But not just on set, but backstage, and the camera time that the young black girl who was the stage manager got. I just thought she did a great job in her, lane of that. But I just enjoyed how the theater environment turned Lexi into such a savage. She was
Right.
behind.
Right. I was dying laughing at that.
I was dying. She was back there blossoming, and just the way that this she pulled this off. And not only did this episode bring Lexi to the forefront in such a spectacular way, but it also we watched her blossom and turn into just grow into this incredible powerhouse person. And the idea that a high school student could put together a play this phenomenal and this far reaching and nuanced, I just thought was spectacular. With that behind the scenes cutaways of her just, becoming a boss in the moment, I thought was fantastic.
It was so pivotal, right? It was just so pivotal to her like character development because now y'all are gonna have to move forward with Lexi in these episodes, knowing that she's like that in her element, right? I remember my friend had texted me and he was like, "Why is Lexi talking to people like this backstage?" And I was like, "Oh, you've never been on set with a director before, have you?"
Just savagery.
I was like, "Oh, Lexi's one of those directors, honey. Like a blind 3-year-old could have done the lights better than you.
That
Get your
part.
shit." I was like, "Get your shit together, whatever your name is, sir." Doing the lights and stuff. You were 12 seconds behind. You were 2 seconds. It just got her like demands got more and more egregious as the show went on too. And then like the payoff was like, oh, that last scene, that last act with with the guy who plays Ethan, just playing Nate in the show, and
That oh yeah, that guy, that's the other thing I want to comment. He earned an Emmy, I don't care. Like
right.
the way the way he came into that, it seemed like we were watching a meta performance, like this young actor playing a young actor and getting an opportunity to really just flex like that. I felt so proud for him as a character and also as an actor. I thought he did an incredible job.
Beautiful. I fully agree. So we kind of talked a little bit about Lexi and Rue in the beginning and that beautiful exposition and just a little bit more like a deeper dive into their relationship and how Lexi viewed it, right? Because we get a lot of Rue's narration and they sprinkled that into the episode as well. But then we move into like Cassie and Maddie. And I really want to know how y'all felt about the Cassie and Maddie scenes with the cheerleading and all of that because part of me was like, okay, we're portraying Cassie in the way that all of us would, understand it to be. And then Lexi had her little section where she was like, what if I dress like this? And what if the boys like this? And what if after they go to college and they end up looking like this? Like, quite frankly, it was a lot of shade being thrown by Lexi, but in a really kind of, y'all keep saying the word nuance. So that nuanced kind of like honest way, like, we were okay with her presenting it like this shady way because we knew that we had to hear Lexi's side, right? Kyra, like the way you said, a love letter to Lexi. So I'm really curious, like, what y'all felt because I was shocked when she said, or she said something about like, I wish I could lead with my body or whatever it is. Somebody has the exact quote. I said, oh my God. No, she did not say that to Cassie about Cassie. And I was shook. So if you have anything to say about that, I would love to hear y'all's takes on the Cassie and Maddie through the Lexi lens because I was like, ooh, this is a little crazy to me. Nicole Noir, go ahead, babe.
Like looking at the relationship, I got really really sad. I felt heartbroken watching them because if I mean I've been really lucky that the women in my life have been in my life since I was about 12, and so watching them and understanding what it feels like when you're young enough for everything to feel like it's going to last forever, and then
Mm,
watching how they've deteriorated and seeing how intimate their conversations were about their families. And yeah, there was the whole showy thing. Like, if I thought about seeing someone and I looked at their relationship, I thought it was quite shallow. I didn't expect that level of depth and like exchange of emotion. And if that's a snippet
right.
of their relationship, then there's even so much more that Lexi didn't even see. So that kind of sisterhood, that chosen sisterhood that they had, and to see how Sam chose the I thought was really interesting. Like, obviously at the beginning of the season, you have Maddie banging on the door and Cassie's, making that first betrayal. And obviously we run
Right.
up and we don't get to see what happens. Everyone goes, oh, did she beat her ass there? What did she do? Blah blah blah. The rest of it. But when they cut to the scene of Maddie crying behind the door, I was so so sad because the very
Mm,
least you could have done to given her was, I'm sorry, it's not worth it, but I've made my choice. And she didn't give her that. And then to see Maddie standing behind the door saying, he's put me through so much and he's with my best friend. when will this end? Not her knowing that next episode he would come to her bedroom and deeply traumatize her even more. I don't know, it made me deeply, deeply sad.
I love you for saying that because that was like quote unquote outside of the play, right? But those were those cuts where the camera was we were going from what was portrayed in the play to what was actually happening, and at times we didn't really have a timeline understanding, but they did it beautifully, and I love that you brought that up because I'm obsessed with this show doing parallels. It does it in dialogue, it does it in themes, and it does it in like these relationships and these scenes where you see, you know, Maddie banging on the door trying to see where Nate was. She didn't even know Cassie was in there. So that was like that kind of element. And then here we have, she knows that Cassie is the only one on the other side of that door. And I thought it was so beautiful. And I was telling one of my friends the other day or yesterday, I was like, it's so cool that they had the dialogue for Maddie to say, Nate fucked my life up, or Nate is going to ruin my life, or Nate has been so awful to me and now he's fucking my friend. Because so often the discourse around when these kind of betrayals happen is, oh, she did this, Cassie did this, Cassie did this, and da 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 da. And they finally had Maddie like also just kind of say like the sadness that I feel is also not just from my friend's betrayal, but that he would do this. And I've been trying to grapple with the feelings I feel about this man. And he would do this. He would come between this friendship like this. He would be harmful to me like this. He would continue to do this. Why would he do that? And she turns to Kat in that moment. And I was just like, I love that she finally said that. Like as she was banging on the door towards Cassie, she's like, look, this man really trying to fuck up my life. So I really appreciated that. Renee, go ahead.
Yeah, so I like how Lexi portrayed their relationship because I felt like it was a nice like montage of like deep female friendship intimacy where there was like, you know, like the cheerleader dance scene, there was like a little bit of like homoeroticism, especially with like the way they were like dancing on each other, right? And I mean, you know, I think everybody's a little queer, so there's that. So I was like, all right, the gay agenda, I support this. But I think when like I'm just saying gays are winning.
Period.
But I I think, you know, to echo what Nicole said when Maddie was like vulnerable and sort of like crying and then like Cassie was like, no, like I understand. It seemed that like we initially thought that like Maddie was the mean girl, but it was actually Cassie who was the mean girl. She just
Mm,
wasn't confident
I knew
enough.
it.
She was not confident enough to be mean, so she
Mm,
sort of took from Maddie's confidence,
mm,
and that's also probably why she felt the need to quote unquote be with her partner. And I think like watching like Maddie sort of cry, like and like Maddie crying, she's banging on the door, and like, you know, when she was just like he had to do this to my best with like my best friend.
mm,
I took it as like, okay, Nate had to be a piece of shit, fine, but he had to be a piece of shit with somebody that I love deeply.
mm,
And
mm.
you know, I
Like
think
where does
that hmm?
where does it end, Nate? Where does the harm end?
Right, because it's like, how could you not think that was some sort of like pointed attack? And I mean, I haven't had a friend do that to me when it came to anybody romantically, but I've had my friends do that to me when it come to like other friends or just like other sort of situations where it was like, okay, we didn't we weren't good friends, but then you had to go out of your way to go and like take my other friends to like prove a point, to like try and win this situation, to feel like you one up me. Like, why would you do that? Like, why would you
Mm-mm.
cause that harm? And it's like this sort of like, it really is sort of like a deep sort of like psychic betrayal. And, you know, my heart, like, I think Alexa Demi, you know, she really, like, I felt the emotion, like the voice cracking.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they really have been acting. Maddie also has been number one at the friendship charts.
Thank you.
I had to pin the tweet. She's been number one in the friendship charts for the past 7 weeks. She's
Thank
been
you.
a Rue, call her Rue Rue. She hugged Rue when you know Rue was not taking showers. She was hugging up on Jules, being sweet to Jules. She gave Barbie some real nigga advice. She was sweet to Cassie. She's
Tell
been
that.
sweet to Lexi. Like
Run and
she,
tell that.
Maddie is
Thank you.
Team Maddie.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I would just like to say and add on that, it just in case y'all didn't motherfucking hear, Maddie is that girl. Maddie is that motherfucking girl. That confidence, translated into kindness, and maybe there's a mean streak in that, but it's mean in the justice and restorative type, which is why you saw that montage of her like, did you just say something racist? Did you just say this to my friend? Like, that's when she gets quote unquote violent and mean in a form of like justice. So y'all know I have tweeted many times, team Maddie, Maddie supremacy. And I love, love, love that even Lexi herself was able to kind of talk about Maddie in this way. Even in her quote unquote shade towards Maddie, she was acknowledging that it is the confidence, it is the dedication to the self-awareness, it is the love that she gave to Cassie and that Cassie gave to her that really tells us who Maddie is. And it's like I was kind of intimidated by her, and I finally figured out why. And then we cut to that scene where, who was it? Lexi was feeling stupid. And guess what Maddie did? Affirmed her in the stupidity, but also said she didn't have to feel that if you didn't want to. Like, come on now, this is bars. Like, Maddie is 16 years old doing things that the 36-year-olds need to pay attention to. Like, that's exactly how you talk to a friend. Like, yeah, I felt stupid at one point too. There's the empathy. Then there's the, you don't have to feel stupid. You can just also decide not to feel stupid. 90% of life is confidence. And, and I know that that's why, we cut to that scene because that was important for how Lexi was presenting that relationship between Maddie and Cassie and how Lexi saw the relationship between Maddie and Cassie and how it affected her. So I was like, let's stand Maddie appropriately because that is my girl. So I'm good with it. Maddie and Lexi are Maddie's at the friendship chart, top of the friendship charts for me too. But Kyra, I loved your love letter to Lexi because it did show how she really do be like quietly, low key, loyal and looking out like big time. So B. Marie, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with you about the Maddie Lexi dynamic. Her showcasing Lexi showcasing Maddie and Cassie's relationship. Not only did it show like where all this tension comes from Maddie and like how she imprinted on Cassie and like why her and Cassie connected, but it also showed that like Cassie's not a very good person. Not only is she not a good friend, but she's not a very good sister. Maddie was able to be a better sister figure towards Lexi than Cassie was just in those couple of scenes, which makes me wonder
Come
if
on.
Maddie is the reason that Lexi is so involved in Cassie's life. Because it almost seems like
Mm,
that wouldn't happen if she had not had that relationship with Maddie. Because Maddie really is the confident one, whether she's faking it to make it or not. Cassie, if you remember the flashback with Lexi and Cassie, like what did Cassie look like when Lexi had braces, when their dad was all drunk and strung out? Cassie didn't look like how she looks now. Whereas I feel like Maddie's one of those girls, and we can talk about Degrassi in a different space, but like if we remember Manny from Degrassi,
ew.
Manny always had confidence. And I feel like Maddie is very similar to that, where she may have gone through what she went through, but instead of being the weak person that she could have became, she became a strong person, which means that that confidence is in her regardless of what she goes through. Where when Cassie was faced with difficulties, instead of being confident and being like, you just broke up with my best friend when Nate found her outside of that gas station, her insecure ass got in the car and went along with whatever was going to happen. I won't say
Mm-hmm.
she seduced him, but she definitely didn't
Right.
stop him. And I have a friend that did that to me, and
Oh,
I forgave her
oh,
multiple times, and she did it multiple times. Let me tell you, those
oh.
people, they don't like themselves and they want to be the person that they're trying to take things from. That's why they do things like that. That is a actual person out in the world. Like that is like, I
And
swear there are so many of those evil women.
right? Sam Levinson
um
talks about this episode specifically too, and a lot of other episodes, how he's like, this is like emotional, quote unquote, realism. Like, he's like, yeah, this is a rendition of things that have happened to me when I was, going through whatever I went through. But like, a lot of the stuff you're seeing is going to feel real because I want it to feel true to how people respond in, you know, these moments. And I think it was bold, and it was very risky to do it in a high school environment. But I love that because it puts a lot of nuance around the gentleness with which we speak about these characters, right?
I agree. And I think, you know, because trauma can stop growth, right? So, like, something very traumatic can happen to you, and emotionally, you can stop growing. You can sit still in that trauma.
Mm,
And
and
I think they're showcasing that Cassie, when her dad left, or whatever actually panned out between her mom and her dad,
right,
she stopped growing in that moment. Where Lexi, like somebody had mentioned prior, they're two different sides of the same coin, and they're on the opposite ends of the spectrum.
right.
Cassie is on the I'm going to be a child for the rest of my life spectrum, where Lexi is like, because of what I went through, I am not going to be like them. And
Mm,
her mom is so supportive that she actually got lucky because she's being nurtured towards
right.
that.
And so I love that we're just having this conversation around Cassie and Matt. I'm really, really glad. I'm really glad because that's what I wanted to get at. Because one of the episodes kind of showed how the victim mentality that Cassie kind of gets to have helps her and helps people, you know, just be nicer to her and let her get away with a little bit more. And this episode kind of showed, like, no, like, Cassie, you're wrong and you're the mean girl. And we finally, after the exposure of her and Nate doing whatever the fuck they was doing, like, I love that we're having this dialogue. Like, Maddie is not the mean girl or the, you know, irrationally angry or violent. She never was. She was a good friend. She needed Cassie in moments. At some of, you know, Maddie's lowest moments, Cassie was there. I think that's what Lexi was showing in the play, where her parents were beefing and she had to come and sleep over. And that's where kind of her and Lexi got closer. And that's where Lexi got to know, you know, Maddie a little bit more intimately. And so I just love that, because remember there was a lot of parallels with the Rue episode where she was running doing crazy stuff, and they were like, no, you don't get to cry, like, you're fucking crying, you fucked my boyfriend, you know. And when Rue was like, you're fucking crying, Jules, look at where my life is, look what you've done to me. And so I feel like we're seeing that again in this play, where we're like, not so much sympathy for Cassie. Like, and I think we still have it, but it's like Maddie, now we're seeing that, like, actually, Cassie, you were a terrible person. You might be a terrible person, because now I see how you're a terrible friend. And it was either you or somebody else that brought it up. It is true. Look how Lexi portrayed her sister and how she portrayed Maddie. And it was like in those moments that she presented,
Exactly.
it was like Maddie kind of like helped her. Like, Maddie's not only confident, she wants other people to be like her too. She's not threatened by other people. She wants other people to, like, not be stupid. She wants other people to be happy. She wants Jules to be happy. She wants Rue to, you know,
Well, even at her birthday, like when she was like, Kat, come dance with me.
she's
Like,
very inclusive. That's my girl.
yes,
So I want
I
to let
love her.
Rod speak. Go ahead, babe. We just stand in Maddie right now. You know, I'll stand Maddie for the next 15 minutes. Go ahead.
Oh, hey, how y'all doing? I really did enjoy this episode. I really appreciated how they kind of showed who were good people and who weren't, and you kind of seen that by how people reacted to the play. And like for instance, their mother, she laughed at everything that they showed with her. Like one thing I was always taught is you can judge how good of a person is based on like if they can make fun of themselves and they don't take themselves too seriously.
Mm.
And like you said, Maddie, she got mad for 1 second, and then the rest of they did
Uh oh,
talk about
we
her
lost
again.
we lost you, Sherrod. I think you're.
Oh,
Are you
can
in
you
a
hear me?
car? You're in a car,
Can you hear me
aren't
now?
you? Because you're moving into.
I am. I am. You can mute me then. I'm finna park.
I'm gonna remove him, and he can come back. Sherrod, go ahead and come back when you get into a good place with some good bars or some good reception, babe. Sapio, and then Kyra, and then Renee.
Yeah, so for me, it's just a two-part thing that I want to like real quickly jab at. That the first part is that and I've spoke about Maddie being othered and this idea that Cassie is the real mean girl. But I feel like in predominantly white situations, especially predominantly white schools, it's almost a given that the white girl is actually the mean girl. What happens is that a lot of times they find people, especially those that want to be quote unquote spicy white or edgy, they find those that would be othered, they find the most aggressive or what's the most assertive of the ethnic friend that they want to have, and they kind of let that ethnic friend do the heavy lifting. And so I feel like in this situation, this is what we have with the Maddie and Cassie, where optically it's easy to look at Maddie and say that she's the mean girl and she's the this and she's the that, because still in the overall trajectory of white supremacy and presentation and how presentation is political primarily, even at a young age, of course, they're not thinking about these critical race theories at 16 to 17 years old, but we all know our social lane and we all know how to stay in it. You know what I mean? And so for Cassie, she has a very good covering mechanism, and had a very good covering mechanism in Maddie, where she could secretly be, this mean person, this undeveloped person, because she had all of these stronger archetypes around her and all of these people who were more comfortable in themselves, even with the addition of like a cat onto it, or something like that. Like, you kind of get these people that hide amongst more vibrant personality types, and they kind of use that to siphon off their own vibrancy until it basically, like any type of parasitic organism, they end up kind of killing their host or attacking their host, and then it becomes a problem, in those most intimate and immediate relationships. The other thing that I want to talk about, and this is something that, again, I say this all respectfully, this is just kind of my conjuncture in mind, just idea of what Sam is kind of discussing. But I've talked a lot about, how this show in particular deals with transness and how it deals with identity and how it deals with sexual fluidity. And one of the things that's really interesting to me is, this conversation about this play really, triggered and got to the root of Nate's psychosis, right? Like, his whole thing is that he is not sure of himself either. He's not particularly confident, though he is violent. And that a lot of that violence is driven by this question around his identity, this question around how his father's identity impacts or informs his own identity, the question of, again, how the larger ecosystem of whatever city that is in Euphoria isn't, how that then puts him on a pedestal, and how he has to perform his identity in front of that, when obviously there are some very real fissures and very real cracks at the base of his sexuality, and maybe even how he wishes that he could be free. And I find this with straight men in general, that I think that there is a lot of envy which turns into resentment, and then also can lead to violence, into like all of these other character types and personalities and identities can be so much freer than they feel like they are socially afforded to be. And so when we talk about this conversation of Nate dressing Cassie, it's like there's definitely a concession of power, no question, on Cassie's end, where she's telling him, you can do all of these things. And she's doing it from a very patriarchal, submissive, lack of guidance, daddy issue standpoint. But I also feel like there's a conversation there that Sam Levinson is trying to have, that in a lot of ways, him dressing her is him having that Barbie that he could never publicly play with, that he as a child could never really go and get into his bag and be. And in a way, you see, the thing about Maddie is Nate wants to be Maddie too, but Maddie is a different animal. You know what I mean? He's abusive, but Nate really wants to be Cassie. He really wants to be what those girls are. And I say this when you talk about like a Caitlyn Jenner. This is a real life example of, yes, Caitlyn Jenner says that she's been, trans since she was 3 years old, and that very well may be so. But you're not going to tell me that sitting up in the house with a bunch of Kardashians did not affect that, a man that was presenting as a straight white male man. You're not going to tell me the power and privilege he saw these quote unquote beautiful women get to have did not completely inform or expedite his decision to go ahead and wear that dress that he's been wanting to wear since he was a toddler too, to see if maybe he can share some of that. You know what I mean? So I think in a lot of ways, we see this with a Nate type of character, which again, I'm going to go back to my original conversation. And they had this even with Hunter in the special episode, where Hunter talks about his idea of femininity and his motivation to be, a girl, came from what he thought the idea of feminine was versus what the commitment of being in that vessel actually means on a social level. Right. And so I think that, when white males decide they want to do things, it's always shaking the table, and the earth has to stop for everybody around them. And when they can't get that same type of affirmation, and when they can't be as comfortable as who they feel like the people that are really they're supposed to be oppressing are. Shit gets weird and it gets violent and it gets real crazy. That's
Right.
the epitome of that.
And you just reminded me of the Jules episode, because that Jules special episode talked about performing femininity as well. And so excellent callback and reference and kind of noticing that for sure. Kyra, you had your hand up?
Yes, ma'am. I just want to circle back to Maddie for 1 second.
We can always do that here. Yes, ma'am.
No, but no, it's like you act like I don't like her. I love Maddie. It's just
No, I know you do.
so one of the things that I think, and let me just get through this thought. I think Maddie attracts people who are predators to her, and we can call Cassie a predator to her, Nate a predator to her, and old girl that she was babysitting for, because how did she know exactly what dress to give her?
Oh, she'd been watching her in a cam. They kind of nodded
Exactly.
to it, but it was very quick.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But the fact is, she's giving her all this quote unquote advice, doing things as a motherly figure, but also nudging her and knowing these things. And it's kind of creepy that you're watching a 17-year-old change. So that's just my hot take on that
Well,
one.
yeah, when you're confident in moving through life, people that also want to be around that. And I think, they can drain you of it and they can attach themselves to you, and being adjacent to you can be, oops, sorry. Being adjacent to you can be very powerful. So, and good for your brand. But I do want to go to you saying Cassie being a predator as well. Thank you for saying that, because if you look at it, guys, Cassie lost her man at the end of this show too. So Lexi had a lot to say about her as a sister.
And her mind.
Okay.
She lost her man and her mind.
Okay. Lexi had a lot to say about her as a sister. We know how Maddie feels about her as a friend. And now we know how Nate feels about her as a girlfriend. What other kind of performances and relationships do you have? I guess she's maybe a good daughter in a way, but we'll have to hear from mommy about that. But so I just love that we're having this conversation now about, like, maybe Cassie just isn't a good person. See, I've been peeped, but like you were saying, Sapio, the white woman in the school with the blonde hair and the big tits and the blue eyes, are we comfortable calling her the fucking villain? And she cries a lot. And oh, she didn't actually fuck him while they were together. It was afterwards. And so I'm just glad that the little kind of dialogue and little set pieces and little kind of camera angles or camera shots that Sam Levinson is putting in this episode and in this show, like, we're all like, yeah, no, Cassie is the problem. And she's the problem, and she's the parasite in a lot of her relationships, quite frankly. She's the predator in a lot of them. Renee, go ahead.
Yeah, so to speak on Cassie, I definitely think that Cassie currently isn't acting as a good person, but I think that's because she doesn't believe there's any good in her outside of what other people give into her, or how other people treat her, or how she's perceived by other people. Because when she was like having that monologue about how she like wants to be loved and how she feels like there's nothing more important than being loved and being affirmed and being somebody's partner, and the things that she was saying to Nate about you can control me, it made me very sad, because honestly that was a lot of women who date men, how we honestly kind of believed about ourselves and how we perform femininity. And that I felt sadness for her character, because it takes a lot of work to unlearn that and to
Mm-hmm.
unlearn that, and that's like a process that's honestly ongoing, and it's like something that you have to honestly kind of commit yourself to for like the rest of your life, or you don't have to commit yourself to it, you could just stay where you are.
Yeah.
But you know
No, and I think you're right. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, and then so that that made me sad for Cassie, because I think she is a parasite to somebody like Maddie, whose confidence comes from an internal belief that she is worthy simply because she exists. And I think Cassie wants to mimic that, which is part of why,
And so
when
does Nate.
yes, which is like why, when Nate got the opportunity to, and I love how like Sapio talked about dress up his Barbie doll, right? Like he loved Maddie because Maddie was already the perfect Barbie doll that he wanted to hold and have. And now he's making Cassie be his Barbie doll, since Cassie already like, Cassie had the willingness
Submit or
to
whatever.
become
Right.
right. And so he was just like, great, I have this sort of opportunity.
I love that.
So I don't think that I was like concerned if like the mom who she was like babysitting was like grooming, because there are weird moments, and I don't know if that has to deal with Sam's own creepiness, because Sam Sam really is in some ways the white Tyler Perry. I don't like how he uses sexuality as a designator for morality. He likes to use hypersexualized women and have that be the indicator of their moral struggles. And that's
Mm?
kind of sexist. That's kind of fucking sexist. But I think, I guess, like, if you knew you had 5,000, 8,000 Dolce and Gabbana fucking, like, Oscar de la Renta gowns and all this fucking jewelry, who wouldn't have a camera in their house to make sure
Thank
nobody
you.
took that shit?
Hello.
So I think she was actually just being magnanimous. Like, all right, girl, you've been going through a rough time. You're a sweet girl. You don't be robbing. Here's a dress.
And also, your best friend just fucked your ex boyfriend. Like, here's your dress, baby girl. Like, and I'm glad that the camera scene that a lot of people miss, but that we noticed it and we talked about it a little bit. The camera scene with the 9:37 in the clock kind of came through. Like, she ended up wearing that dress. Now, it's time to talk about the Nate, Cal, Maddie, Cassie, Jules scene, because she wore that dress in that scene, you guys. The gift that she wore, the dress she wore, that dress in that scene. Do y'all remember this scene? I'm gonna walk y'all through the scene real quick. So, first of all, it's giving horror still, which I love. That's my bet. I love it. Like, I literally sat with this scene for so fucking long because we've seen it in so many horror movies, in so many trailers, where Nate is looking at the back of his head in a mirror. That is absolutely fucking terrifying. And I love that they did that. So we start with Nate looking at himself in a mirror, and it's the back of his head or someone's head, right? And then we cut and we pan to him looking at Maddie wearing that dress, beautiful dress from Minka Kelly. Then as we go away from Maddie, it's Jules that's walking up to him and touching him. And oh, what a chilling scene. It's just her eyes, right? Absolutely chilling scene. This is just horror 101. Like, just study this scene if you ever want to write a horror film. And then there's a hand on Cassie's head as Cassie's head hits the bed. And we know that Cassie's face is involved with Nate, but then we pan up and we see it's Cal. Okay? And so I know a lot of y'all were like, what the fuck is going on here? Let me just say that as this was happening, I was super, super excited. Just from a cinematic standpoint and a written standpoint, I was losing my mind. I was like, this is fucking beautiful. Because what we watch as a group, Follow What We Watch Film TV, we've talked about this before. Nate's true love is Jules. Okay? That's his true love. I don't know if you notice, if anybody else noticed. What We Watch told me this, and they're correct. Nate's true love is Jules. And now we're getting into the parts of this show and this season where we're realizing that that's the truth. His true love is Jules. And so that's why we see him being held by her in his dream in the mirror. That's the only person that Nate touches in any of that scene is Jules, or is touched by is Jules, right? So that's indicative of a relationship there. What comes from him visualizing Maddie in the dress is again just representative of, like, she is the looker. She is the one that represents what he quote unquote should be with in his masculine side, shown in the juxtaposition, right, with his quote unquote homoerotic queer side in the play, which is what kind of shook him to get to this point where he's walking out, breaking up with Cassie and all that stuff, right? So we see him with Jules. We see him looking at Maddie in her most feminine way. She's just looking back. She's out of his reach, right? Which is also very symbolic. And then we go to Cassie show in a submissive way. And you remember that what they're really mirroring is the Cal Jules scene, right? And that's important because Nate is struggling with the fact that his father has, disrespected the love of his life. Like, I don't think we talk about that enough, or we recognize that enough. Nate's father fucked the love of his life, okay? Like, and then videotape that without her consent, okay? So imagine just sitting with that as a child. And then after that, we see Cassie in her submissive, right, which is just on brand. We see her in her submissive point on the bed crying. We know that she had a moment like that with Nate, but then we pan up and we see Cal. And then we go back and we see Cal, and we know that Cal represents this kind of patriarchy, predator, harmful villain, and all that kind of stuff. And that's important because when we go back down, we see Nate. And I was like, this is fucking beautiful. We start with Nate looking at himself in the mirror, and he can't even see himself. And then he's touched by the love of his life. The other women are out of his reach. And then what's really keeping Nate down is his father, which is what I think that was represented by Cal putting a hand on a boy's head, and the boy ended up being Nate. So like the pressure that Nate is feeling and the pain that Nate is feeling is a result of his father, which is what we've all been saying and what we watched for forever. So thank y'all for letting me break that scene down. It was fucking beautiful. It was real. And as it was going, I said, Nate is dreaming this. I know for a fact Nate is dreaming this. And sure enough, Nate wakes up, and guess who's with him? Submissive Cassie. And he's like, oh, she's like, oh, are you okay, baby? Oh, this, that, and the third. And it's just on brand for her character and what she's going through. So I love that. Any questions, comments on that scene and what you got away from that? Because I saw people on there like, what the fuck is this? And I'm like, this is a beautiful look into Nate's life in like 2 minutes. It was beautiful.
I mean, I really just think that the father, again, just really represents not only like the patriarchy and like his expectations, but I think Nate is inherently afraid of everything that has to do with his father, again, including his own sexuality, his father's own sexuality.
Correct.
I think that anybody that goes into, I mean, first of all, and I'll just say, like, even for my magazine, which talks about intellect and sexuality in Black and brown bodies, though it is an erotic publication, one of the things that it tries very hard not to do, and we've been blessed to not be, is like super raunchy, right? Even though there are pornographic elements and there are definitely sex displayed, it's never supposed to be invasive, because in the event that a child might find things which children do, I never would want them to be jarred or shocked into a sense of revelation or awakening, right? And so I think that when you go into somebody's study, especially your parent, and you find your parent having sex, it wouldn't matter the type of sex already. That can already be a super invasive, super traumatic situation, And then when his father is having the type of sex that his father's having, which not because it's inherently gay sex, but because it is aggressive and energy is real. It's we can all pick up on it. I'm sure Nate could perceive a dark undertone to his father's sexual proclivities. That's really scary. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so even when the mother is asking, well, what happened to you around the time you were 9? Well, I saw my daddy fucking, and now I got some questions, And now not only have those, I mean, it sounds simple, but it's real, it's real. Right. Like I saw daddy fucking, and now I got some questions. And now the less that these questions get answered, and the older I get, and the more my own hormones and sexual development come into play, now I'm really being driven by a sense of fear. I'm not even really developing in a natural way, because I'm so worried about not being gay or not looking gay or what my father got going on and how he been doing what he's been doing, that now, I'm probably really just running straight into those things, just because whatever you repress ends up becoming, coming back on your ass 10, 12 times harder. Right. Whereas opposed, maybe he could have just had that freedom. So I think that, there's definitely like a sins of the father allegory in terms of, Nate is just, that Cal represents a lot of fear and confusion for Nate, and that just is what that is. So that him being on the bed, it's like, are you fighting me? Are you pinning me down in an aggressive way? Yes. Is this a sexual thing? But it is. It's sexual psychotrauma, which is horrific in itself. And that's why using that as a conversation and shooting that in a horrific way and in a horror style is truly brilliant, because that's some scary shit. And Nate is a scary individual because of it.
It was such a bold. I'm obsessed with that scene. I hope they study it in whatever schools they got going on. And Sapio, thank you. I want to even take it further with you talking about the traumas that come with seeing your dad have sex, and then not only seeing your dad have sex with the people that he's having sex with, and then he ends up seeing he ends up realizing that he has sex with someone that he is in love with, and then not only that, I want you to this has been a plot line for a large part of the story. The tapes. The tapes have been a large part of the quote-unquote villain. I defined villain in 3 different ways for you in the last spaces. Go check the last spaces. We talked about that. We won't rehash. But this tape has been pivotal and integral into what should become of Cal or Nate or Jules. And right after they show the nightmare scene, right, I want to affirm you that, moving from trying to grapple with seeing your father have sex or knowing that your father is having sex, I'm thinking about what it means for me as a child. I'm thinking about what it means that you cheating on my mama, what it means that the way you're cheating on my mama, and that you're also disrespecting the people that you're having sex with because you're filming them without their consent. And right after that scene where Nate's having this bad dream, we see Jules burn the CD and hit it with a hammer. And who gave her that CD? Nate did. And so I think that's a very important part of also Cal's instilling fear and confusion and being just fucked up in the head and peeing people's houses with his stank ass. That's the kind of stuff that he does. And so we cut to Jules with the damn disc, girl. I can't stand that pee scene. And we're like, okay, like destroy the evidence, destroy. People are really trying to overcome the things that Cal has done to him, the sins of the father. So, anyways, I love that. I love the scene. I don't know what the hell other people were watching. I know what we watched, we good, but that was an absolutely beautiful scene. Please go watch it again. That's how you tell a motherfucking story of like just a villain trying to go through stuff. Because Nate is a quote unquote villain, right? Nate is an obstacle in a lot of these protagonists' life, and he is causing a lot of strife in the characters around him. But we got to see what happens inside of his brain and what he deals with by himself. And Jules is touching him in his dreams because that's who he really wants.
I mean, it's real quick. I thought, there was going to be some violence towards Cassie. I said, now damn, Lexi going to fuck around and get Cassie killed because she making this man real mad right
Girl, to be honest, Cassie getting exposed. And I said this in the last space, Cassie gonna have to hit rock bottom. And someone was like, she don't need to hit rock bottom. I was like, yes, she is, and she's going to. And like we said, she is being dropped by her man, she's being dropped by her best friend, and she being exposed in front of everybody by her sister. Like, people do not like her. And she's redeemable. The only character that to me is not redeemable is Cal. And she's redeemable, but I think we're seeing a really beautiful kind of like trajectory for Cassie and like what decision is she's gonna make. Like, he has me really invested in like what is Cassie finna do, because I'm even shocked that we keep seeing Cassie and Nate scenes. I'd be shook every time. I don't know how y'all feel. Renee and Kyra, you can go next. I know y'all have points to say, but I just wanted to say
So
very
sorry, can I
quickly,
just jump in quickly? I just wanted
I
to
was
ask
shook.
Peach, do you still feel that Nate, after what he even did with the gun with Maddie, that he's a redeemable person still?
I do. Just because he's 16 or 17 or whatever. I do. I don't know, guys. I do. I think that he needs, with some good therapy and some good written dialogue and some good written experiences, Nate is very redeemable. I do. Thank you for asking me that. Renee and Kyra, go ahead.
Yeah, so I wanted to speak about Nate, and like Sapio touched upon it. Nate seeing his dad's tape was a form of sexual abuse. So Nate was sexually abused by his father. So that scene of like where at the end his dad was like pushing his head down and like violently having sex with him, that's what happened to Nate's brain when he saw his dad's fucked up tapes. And
Metaphorical, yes. Sorry, that's a Parasite reference. Go ahead. It all matters.
yeah, and I even like started to Google. I'm like, is it sexual abuse if you show a child pornography? Yes. So
Yeah, it is.
yeah. So like Nate was sexually abused by his father.
Yeah.
That's why he
My
darkened.
baby needs some therapy. Yes, he's redeemable. He needs some therapy and some love and some space. And his mom really not there for him either, low key. Like, mommy's kind of going through her own abuse and trauma in her life that also was inflicted upon Cal, and maybe before Cal too. I don't know, but yeah. Go ahead, Kyra. Thank you, Renee.
Okay, with the whole amalgamation of people in that scene, how everything's twisting and turning.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I just
Ugh,
ran up the
love it.
stairs. But I think
Not you running up the stairs like Maddie and Cassie. Go ahead.
how
Uh-oh. I think we lost you, Kyra. Kyra, we lost you. Was she's cutting out for anybody else, or was that me? Is it my phone? She was
now.
cutting out for others.
No.
Okay. Kyra, you was about to drop bars and your reception got terrible. Okay, we're gonna let you come back in, Kyra. B Marie, baby, go ahead.
Yeah, so I feel the same as you. I feel like Cal is not redeemable at all. And I do feel like, because when Nate was talking to his mom and they were drinking together, which was very disturbing, um, and they were kind of like, trying to connect or whatever that was.
when she was standing in front of the sink and she was talking to Nate, and she basically told Nate at what moment that he started acting different and she felt like he was dark, it was like when he was like, what, 8 years old? I feel like that was at the time of Nate's life when he knew that he wasn't straight or heterosexual. And I feel like Cal and Nate had some sort of interaction where Cal wasn't going to allow Nate to be gay. And that was why when Cal left, he called Nate out and said that he was the fucked up one, right? Because he basically did to Nate what his dad did to him, and
Mm-hmm.
he was now then abandoning him. So
Mm-hmm.
then not, and that's why Cal is even more not redeemable, because to have that, to know all of that and to still be the person that you are makes you like a shitty person. But I feel like Nate's redeemable too, because I feel like his whole life he's been set up to be exactly like his father by somebody who was hyper aware of everything that they were doing. And he does need therapy. I think a lot of people need therapy, but especially him, because no matter how he feels about Jules, and I agree with the sentiment that he's in love with Jules, because
Mm-hmm.
he's protecting her. He's not just protecting himself, because if he was protecting himself, he would have just destroyed the disc. He would have never given it to her. But he then gave her power over him. So that definitely showcased his love for her.
I love that.
But I don't know. It was that, I'm glad that you brought up that topic, or the idea
Mm-hmm.
that he hates his dad because his dad defiled the love of his life. Because before you talked about that dream sequence, because I don't watch horror movies, I
Ugh.
didn't understand it. I watched it like 4 times, I'm not gonna lie, and I was just like, what the fuck, did he rape Nate? And I was like, no, he didn't rape Nate. I think he just knows Nate's gay. And like it took me forever to kind of come to that. And so I'm just like happy to be in here and to understand that I really
You're
did
so
understand it.
you're so welcome. Yeah, it was less about the physical. Like they were showing a physical adaptation or manifestation of like emotional feelings, right? Like the cow pushing Nate's head with his hand was metaphorical. It's just so metaphorical. Go watch Parasite. It's very, very like it was signifying that, like, yeah, in the times that Nate is suffocating in his sexuality, or in his what he in his role in society, which is what we were talking about, what we were showing in the play. Lexi was showing in the play too. Like, you are this jock, you are this powerful person, but like, do people know this side of you? And why don't people know this side of you? And that's why Nate got to get his bar off in the end, which was, I saw a hilarious tweet about it, but like, he was like, that was very homophobic. And he's right. But it's interesting coming from you to talk about this, Nate, because you are also grappling with what you view hyperfemininity to be, and what you view homophobia to be, and how you choose to present yourself as the jock, the handsome jock of the school that can get any girl that he wants, including 2 best friends. But you also don't want to be portrayed as someone, and that's why you were kind of the way you were with Jules in this way. So, anyways, Kyra, are you back?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay. I think you're good. Talk for a little bit. I'll let you know.
Yeah, no. I think with the amalgamation and the whole in and out of each person that he quote unquote loved or cared for in that dream, Cassie has been cosplaying Maddie for like the past couple of episodes. But I think this particular
True.
episode, the way this particular episode, she was actually cosplaying Jules and she had no idea. That's what I think, because if you look at the placement of certain things, she was starting to look like episode 1 or 2 Jules, like a little bit calmer version.
No, you're
And
absolutely correct. A white, blonde, light-eyed
yes,
white woman. That's
yes,
exactly
and
what's going
that's
on here.
exactly what
Absolutely.
he wanted, but he was attracted to Maddie's confidence. So that's why I think it was, I don't I don't know if I'm using the
Maddie,
correct nomenclature, but I think Cassie was a better beard for him because she was more a facsimile of Jules.
Mm. And I want to affirm you in that, because how did the mom describe the difference between Maddie and Jules? And when did the mom project, right? What did she say?
Yes.
I like the blonde girl better for you,
Yes.
right? That was
Hmm.
the blonde girl. Okay, interesting. And then she goes, that other girl was always going to trap you. Like, if you got pregnant, she was going to try to trap you. And I
Because
was
she's
like,
ethnic. Because she's ethnic, and you did the same
right.
thing to
And
his
you did the
father.
same thing. Right. And I was like,
But the
is that because
but the
you did that,
difference
Marsha?
is
Like,
one of you is white.
exactly. And so he wants, and just a little kind of like nugget there, right? Like, I want my white son with a white woman and a white presenting woman, blonde hair, light eyes. That's what I want. And you need to be with her. And sure enough, that night she saw him walking in, and or she saw her walking into the room, and that's when, she had her little bag, and the mom kind of got her little moment where she was happy, right? Because she's going through her own shit with Cal. So definitely that. Wall, go ahead. Welcome, babe.
Hey, what's up, guys? No, actually, first of all, I love listening to all y'all talk. This has just been pretty cool. Just
Thank
been sitting
you.
in my car. I've been sitting in my car actually for the last hour just because I'm supposed to go to Costco and get something, but it's been so good, so I might not go to Costco tonight.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. You're so affirming. Thank you. Now
Um,
get your stuff, baby, but go ahead.
all right, so a couple things real quick. So when you guys were saying, a couple of you ladies were saying that like Cal isn't redeemable, I feel like that's kind of the area that was like, I don't know, because I feel like you can't ever say no one isn't redeemable. I just feel that like they just need more work. And what really kind of like made me really interested in this last episode here was just kind of I think the weird part is like how Cal, clearly we all know he needed to heal, right? And how kind of all these things that he's been doing has kind of been almost like general curses or generational curses, right? From his, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
how his dad um, dealt with him and now how he's dealing with his son Nate. And I think it's crazy how much that him being like him not healing or him not dealing and breaking these generational curses has really ruined the family dynamic that I think, ironically, in a weird way, most people want, right? Most people want a home, you got kids, you got a wife, you got a flourishing business, right? Like that's what we're looking at. Like, dang, this is what I want. But in reality, him not breaking those curses that have kind of held him back and made him this evil villain that we know him as, right? Privately, at least, right? Has really shown out that this is what's the reason why his family, his nice knit family that everyone perceives, is beyond damaged, and now we're seeing the son. And the other thing too that I found really cool with this episode was uh, uh, how Nate's portrayed out there in the open, but yet his dad, everything was so private. You know what I'm saying? Like no one really knew his dad and the shit that his dad did, and
Mm.
obviously the tapes that he has, right? And how what the Cal did even said that, hey, if word gets out, I'm gonna lose businesses. I have this. I own this. I do this. And I think how Nate wanted to protect his father and keep it private, but yet in the same realm, his business is all out there and everyone knows. And I
Right.
think that just it made me really just think that, man, like if you don't really take care of your situations and stuff that's kind of bothering you now, in the long run, it can actually be a worse situation,
Mm.
or should I say, general curses, right? If you don't take care of your
Generational. Generational.
generational
Yeah.
curses, excuse me,
Mm-hmm. You
now
good?
it can fester, and in the long run, it's actually going to impact and hurt your family or kids or whatever in a worse way than it probably hurt you. So that was just kind of my whole idea on this whole episode. And I think it's just phenomenal. I mean, we're
Oh my
getting
God. Beautiful.
yeah, like I'm a sociology major, so it's like every time I'm watching it, I'm like kind of trying to calculate it and really kind of see it from the dynamic of families, right? Nature versus nurture. What makes a family?
Mm-hmm.
How is a family? Like I love Ashtray because like dude came into this family, and look at how he's so protective of Fez and what who Fez is. Why? Because Fez actually was the one that was willing to care for him and all these things. I think it's just so dope, and so that's just kind of where my whole thought
Beautiful.
process is, man. I think it's just so much cinematic adventure, but there's also so many things that you can just like really ponder on for a couple days and weeks, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
things you can learn from it. So
Weeks,
yeah,
months, years, talking with
absolutely.
friends.
So no,
I
no,
think
no,
it
it's dope.
I
Yeah.
think it's beautiful because, like, every time I see an episode this season, I'm like, "Ooh, this is the best episode." And the next one's like, "Ooh, this is the best episode." And I saw one little tweet complaining, "I don't, we don't we're not in here. Welcome to What We Watch. We talk about what we enjoyed about a TV show primarily. It's not that I'm against criticisms, but I am not a film or TV critic. I am here to celebrate what I enjoy and celebrate good things and just hear people feel and emote and empathize and sympathize and kind of just think about how these TV shows are portraying things that they believe and understand. So I love that. Hi, Rios. Did you want to speak, babe? Or are you just waving by?
No, I want to speak.
Okay,
Um,
okay. You don't know how to put your hand up. Go put your hand up. I got you. I got you next, babe.
my
So
bad.
we're gonna wrap up in about 10 to 15 minutes. But I did just want to say how beautiful it is that we're all kind of appreciating this kind of departure from the episode, and this is just a play from Lexi. And I saw someone tweet that they were like, "Oh, this may like slow down." No shade to the person, but like, "Oh, this might slow down, and this feels like it's slowing the plot down, and we're just kind of going over everything that happened." I'm like, "No, this is beautiful. We're really diving deep into the perspective of Lexi based on everybody, and this is an important perspective to have. Lexi's commentary on characters is valuable for everybody moving forward, right? And into the finale, we're about to get some more, and so." Y'all need to remember what the fuck Lexi thinks about a lot of these people or the things that she said and the little scenes that we saw outside of the play too, because we are not going to leave this space in the next 10, 15 minutes without talking about Fez, Ashtray, Faye, Custer, that whole situation and how it relates to Lexi, because again, that was beautifully written in. I there is a way that these episodes can get too jumbled and too crowded and too misleading and confusing, and I don't know if that was for y'all, but for me it was perfectly presented. I'm like, this is how you keep a story going, and they did. That B plot or that other plot in the story was Lexi depending on Fez to be at the play, and he wasn't. And now we have to ask that burning question as to why. So my last few questions before I'm gonna get Rios, Renee, Sapio, and Eileen, and then I'd like to close out the space with these two questions. One, who was your favorite character in the play? Who had the best response in the audience outside of the play, whether it was to their character or not? And we're gonna have to talk about Fez and Ashtray. And what do you think is happening with Fez, Ashtray, Custer, and Faye? So marinate on those questions as we move through. People with their hands up, follow What We Watch Film TV. And Rios, go ahead, baby.
Hey, what's going on, guys? This is a great room. Just want to say that first and foremost. But I agree with what you said, Mo, about Nate. Like, I think Nate's character is redeemable. I mean, just because of what he did to Jules, to me, like what he did, like him giving the tape to Jules, kind of like changed my whole mindset on Nate. You feel me? Like, I mean, Nate's a piece of shit. Don't get it twisted. But also, too, we have to also take into account that he's only 17 years old. You know, so like he still has a lot of growing up to do in terms of him trying to find his sexuality, in terms of him trying to find himself. You know, because they're still in high school. You know what I'm saying? So I just feel like with him, you know, I feel like he's just trying to get back at his father as the best way he can, because you know, like the way he left his mom and all that stuff was pretty down bad. And
Right.
what made that interesting was the episode prior to that, his mother was like, "Yo, you have all the bad traits of your father,"
How dare she? But right, right.
right? But I mean, but at the same time, when he said that, like when she said that to him, he kind of had like this look of like disbelief and like kind of he had to accept that, you know, he
Mm,
does have the same traits as his father. But I feel like he's trying to reverse all that now and stuff, and trying to be more open about like what's going on with him and stuff. And I mean, and I feel like Cassie, you know, like she's the typical, you know, like trophy chick, you know, that's the girl that his mom wants. So he has to please, you
right.
know, he has to please himself, and he also has to please his mother too, you know, because like that's a big thing. Like,
Yes.
so it's kind of like, you know, he's kind of stuck at a crossroads right now. So I mean, I ain't gonna lie, Nate's a piece of shit, but I feel bad for him. I really do, just because he really can't be.
Yeah. He ain't get no good parents. He is in a society that doesn't expect queerness on the spectrum that it is. You know, like obviously he's a terrible person. And that is why I'm obsessed and I love the scene with him and Jules sitting in the car, because a lot of people are like they conflate these ideas. If I say that this person did a good thing, I'm not saying that they're a good person, and I'm not absolving them of all the other bullshit that they did, i.e., holding a gun to Maddie's face 2 seconds before you did this good thing, right? But like that's and they mirrored that when Jules was like, oh, so you think you're a good person now? He was like, no, I didn't even say all that. Absolutely not. I'm a terrible person. I just think that you should have this. And everything that I said about you before in our intimate moments where I was probably being a piece of shit, but I meant it. I meant that basically that I'm in love with you. So, and I'm grappling with being in a society where that isn't, properly accepted, or it doesn't go with who I am, i.e., here's the fucking play where everybody's laughing at me and my quote unquote feminine, gayer, queer side. And this is how it is. Like, this is how it is if I were to try to be with you, Jules. I think that's what I was reading from this episode, at least, and then just parallels with the other episodes. So definitely. Renee?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that Nate's not gay. Like, he may be queer, but he's not gay. And it's like really important to understand that sexuality is a spectrum. And I think that like when people talk about like
Right.
when he's 18, then like number two, people like to bring up like the dicks on his phone, but it kind of reminds me think about like the conversation with like Jared and Insecure when he was like, yeah, I let somebody suck my dick, and then I realized it wasn't for me.
Right.
So not gay. He's queer and trying to figure out himself. And like
Right.
when you're 17, like I like when you're 17, like even as like a boy, even if you're straight, you're still trying to figure out your sexuality
Right.
and how to express yourself sexually if you know that you only want to have sex with women. So I think that there needs to be a little bit more like nuance and grace, and like I don't know, people might need to Google some stuff about queerness and sexuality,
Right.
because like a lot of the conversations like it's like it's a harmful sort of tropes. And also to say that Nate is gay because he's attracted to Jules as a trans woman is transphobic inherently,
Mm-hmm.
because
Agreed. Agreed.
it's inherently a transphobic statement. And Jules is also like Hunter Schafer, like she also presents as like a very feminine like I wouldn't think that if like if Hunter didn't say that she was trans, I would not think that. Um,
Right. And
so I think that's important to sort of like
Um,
I think what like Nate is like struggling is like, okay, this person who's open about their
right.
status and I'm attracted to them, and I know that I'm just living in this homophobic ass society where
Right.
I even love somebody who happens to be trans, and then all of a sudden people are going to call me gay.
Right.
And a broken clock is right twice a day. Nate was right that We
Right.
Got a Hero scene was homophobic.
He was correct.
It was flawless, but it was homophobic.
um. So
See?
Renee, I got a question for you. Okay. So in season one, right? Remember when him and McKay are getting dressed in the locker room and stuff like that, right? Like they're after football practice, they're getting dressed in the locker room. Like, Nate has like this, like Nate, like when they show like the all the dicks in the screen and all that shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, they showed Nate's face, and like Nate kind of had like it was kind of
Mm.
like a sinister smirk.
Hmm.
And like it kind of like, I don't know, it kind of shifted my not it kind of shifted the whole thing about Nate, because it was like, all right, Nate was talking to Jules too and stuff like that, and we all know that Jules is trans or whatever the case may be, but like I felt like his whole, I mean, although he's still like Jules, I feel like his mindset was kind of changed for a little bit, for a little bit, when he was in the locker room, when they were in the locker room during the shower scene. So it was kind of like, is he gay or is he trying to find himself? But it's like I kind of think that what he was doing to Jules at the time in terms of like disrespecting her,
Right.
like I feel like it was just more of him acting out his own fears, if that makes any sense.
So and so
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the question was, Rios, but if I just may interject here, I think it's beautiful that we're able to have these conversations. And Renee, my resident, checking everybody on their terminology. I love that. And I think we're all trying to learn ways to be less homophobic, fat phobic, and anything else, that we need to work on in the blind spots that we clearly have. And I love that this show is giving us a space to have those conversations, because one of my kind of issues were people saying the word crackhead a lot. I have a very huge problem with that. Or addict even it's a me personally, I'm gonna play the neutral host card most of the time, but I love that even at our big ages. But I think about the demographic of these younger teenagers and what they're, or maybe younger Gen Z or whatever, what they're kind of gleaming from these episodes and this kind of, conversation around sexuality and the spectrum. And so I do think that we could all benefit from using the words people with addiction. I think that a lot of these spaces, things come up and we can start saying people with an addiction. I don't think it's harmful. I don't think it's hard for anybody to adopt that and say that in their words. I think that we do need to also look up the word queer and start saying queer. I also know that there's certain times where you're not supposed to call someone else queer. That's only supposed to be something that people self-identify with. So there's even some conversations there that we should have, that we need to be careful of. But I think, and just in general, I think that these conversations surrounding Nate is kind of like Inception or meta in and of itself. Like, hey, Euphoria, Eastland High is representing kind of what happens when a quote unquote masculine performing jock, or all those kind of tropes that we've seen in TV. We don't even have to take it to real life. In TV, we have the jock, we have the guy who's the most handsome looking, or the guy that all the girls want in high school. And so we get that. And how do we talk about a 16 or 17-year-old boy going into from adolescence into manhood, and how do we define his sexuality? And I think what we said in what we watched Space Before was beautiful. He doesn't even know yet. So we cannot assign anything in a yes or a no faction either. We don't know yet how he feels. We have inklings, we have understandings of even the parallels with Cal, like when he was like he likes eating his girlfriend's pussy, but he's in love with his male best friend. Like both of these things are true, and we need to accept people in their fullness in that. And so that's where terms like queer come in, and that's a little bit of a gentler way, and bisexual, without erasing the fact that by you using words like gay. So I just wanted to say, Renee, thank you for clarifying that, bringing that up. Again, try to use people with addiction. Rue has an addiction. She is a person with an addiction. You know, Elliot is not an addict. He's a high functioning person that uses drugs. I learned that in one of my episodes too. So definitely great dialogue around that. Renee, did you want to say anything else?
Oh, I attached above the gender unicorn. It's like this really great tool that talks about gender identity versus gender expression versus physically attracted to versus emotionally attracted to.
Shout out to Euphoria. Sapio, go ahead, babe.
Yeah, I just think that for me, I'm really just trying to figure out and really like on pins and needles to see how they're dealing with this whole, obviously not even the fall of Fez, but I'm really
Oh,
interested to see about
yes.
like, Faye, you know what I mean? I know we talked about this a little bit, but that's really what I'm on right now. I really need to know what Faye is going to do, how she's going to handle that. I will say for me, I don't think it's the police that's coming. I do think that it's, Lori and her peoples or somebody attached to Mouse, which is far scarier than the police. I know that he said to Faye that it was the police. But I don't think that's who's coming. I don't think that's who's coming behind him. And I truly don't think that's who he's working for. I think that's just something that a man tells his girlfriend to make it seem more palatable. You know what I mean? Because
Right, right.
if he said that, it is Lori and the people, or I got, the plug coming, she would definitely, being a resident of the house, I know I would, she would definitely let Fez know, no, hell no, y'all need to get up out of here. I'm gone. Like, you know what I'm saying? So maybe she could,
Yeah,
if it's just the police, if that's fine. Like, they'll
I'm
take them to
wild
jail and it'll be
concerned.
whatever. But no, I think it's going to be some real mayhem and possibly some kind of massacre behind that. And I am, whoo,
Why
I
do
just
y'all
can't
think
wait.
that? I want y'all to stop saying that. Y'all stressing me out. No, no one's getting killed. Everyone's gonna be okay, right? Does anybody believe me?
No, Ash is
I think,
dying.
yo, I ain't gonna
Start
lie.
the start the Bone Thugs. Start
No,
the Bone Thugs.
you
I'm
guys.
not. I'm
Way to
not gonna
boys
lie.
to men.
Crossroads.
Right?
Bone, 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 bone.
Crossroads. End of the road.
No,
Yo, I ain't gonna lie.
no,
Hey, if Ashtray goes
Ashtray,
out
man.
like Denzel on Training Day, man, I'm hurting somebody.
y'all. What'd you say, Rios? What'd you say?
I,
Well,
I think, yo, listen.
no,
I think Ashtray might
no,
won, man. Just because if you look at the preview, right? If you look at, I mean, although it's like
no,
the little thing, uh, Ashtray opens the door first.
no,
I don't know.
no.
I saw in the preview that the door gets like
It
batarammed
yeah,
in.
like it gets ran through, but like you
I don't
see,
know
like
if I don't know
you
if
see,
any of y'all
you see.
watched Snowfall, but
I looked at it again because I was interested about that too. Like with that whole scene, you see like
mm,
a small person walk across the thing.
All I know is that one of y'all gonna have to help me host the next one. If anybody get any of these people get, I'm not gonna be able to do it. I'm gonna be mourning. I'm gonna be in mourning, and if y'all depend on me on these spaces and stuff, I'm gonna need somebody to help me guide this through because I'm gonna be crying. I'm gonna need the
And remember
support.
too, like the crazy thing about it is just, you know,
Mm-mm.
to add to your misery, Peaches, that
Mm-mm.
seriously, that if it is like Lori and them, homeboy knows he was there when Ashtray killed him.
Mm-mm.
Like, you know what I mean? There ain't no question in the house about who did what. I mean,
Mm-mm.
everybody saw that it was Ashtray, including the snitch. You know what I'm saying? So yeah,
Cause
somebody's got to answer for that, bro. Like, we're
you
not getting out the season without nobody getting unalive. Now, come on, now it's been 2 years, and the motherfuckers has been doing
no,
all this crazy shit. Ain't nobody died yet. Come on now,
no.
Peach. It's got at some point
No,
somebody
maybe
got to
he
die, bro.
maybe he go into a coma. No death. No, not my
Nah, man.
babies. Nah, because Custer is a fucking fed, and I don't know if y'all watch Snowfall, but like Ashtray remind me of Avi, and I'm not done yet, so don't spoil nothing. I'm on season 4, but like Ashtray started dressing like Avi with his little chains, his little tracksuits, and I was just falling more in love. I'm like, look at this little baby trying to do his thing, and he's the only real one here. And Faye and her little stupid boyfriend, like if they really do this, I'm gonna really have a lecture about 2 to 3 minutes next space about the girls and the boyfriends that they choose. I'm gonna have to have it because look what happens. Y'all choose the wrong people and then people start getting caught up and killed. The wrong people. I don't like that shit. But anyways, welcome Jaja. I'm so glad you're here. You don't think Ashtray is gonna die, and if you do, don't say it to me. Thank you. I am trying to still love this show. But welcome to What We Watch, babe.
I love this space. This is my first
Thank
time
you, baby.
catching you, and this is awesome. I'm one of those people that goes to YouTube and finds the people that'll like break down the previews like frame for frame, and I wasn't able to find one for this upcoming episode. So we're all just kind of sitting on the edge of like what's going to happen. I did see on Instagram that the actor who plays Ashtray did say that the finale is devastating and
No,
heartbreaking. Like those are the words he used.
no.
So yeah, I don't know, but I'm with you guys. I'm so mad that Fesco didn't make it to the play. I'm still upset about that.
My girl Lexi is really trying out here. This was the peak of her, high school career. She's out here doing it, and the one person that like showed her love before like she even knew that she needed it low key. Cause remember when she was talking to Fez, she was like, "I'm not that cool." He was like, "What are you talking about? You the coolest motherfucker in here." Oh, love Fez. And so oh, that makes me so sad. Oh no, that makes me so sad. But yeah, no, thank you. That's what we watch is about. I think watching TV can be such a solitary experience. So I love that you like go back and watch like YouTube videos of like breakdowns. Because baby, me and you could talk. I'll talk about this stuff all day. I don't like to get too into nitty gritty because then like people start to like say weird things about stuff, and I'm like, we don't have to go that far. We can just appreciate this, shot for what it is and this exposition for what it is. But I love that you do that because that's what we watch is about. And this is not a podcast. You are not here to just listen to me talk. So I really just facilitate the space and let everybody get their bars off. So I'm really glad that you're here. Thank you for hearing everybody talk, because everybody's perspective matters. Eileen Dover. Eileen Dover. Thank
Of
you.
course, of course. Hi, y'all.
I'm, I'm not going to call you by your name. Go ahead.
It's okay. I'm not sure if we talked about Rue a little bit. I'm sure we did because I was late. But I was just as I was watching, we see Rue like finally like smile, and it's the one episode that she doesn't narrate. So it's almost like she was able to see like a different light or fresh air. So and the only time we've ever seen her other smile other than that is it was codependent on Jules. And now that Jules is somewhat distant and she's not using at this current moment, she's able to see things as they are, and she's not playing victim, and she's not saying I had a fucked up life, my father died and this is what I'm left with. She's finally able to see like, oh shit, we are all fucked up. We are all trying to make it through this life. And I think as people that use, I don't think they're selfish on purpose, but I think they are consumed with their trying to get, drugs and trying to just barely make it, that they're not able to see everything as they are, especially when they talked about Gia, saying Gia's fine, but is she really? So I think her mind was able to settle um as she wasn't narrating the story or narrating her life. She was just kind of living life as it comes. So that's all kind of I just wanted to point out.
I do want to say though that she did narrate some portions in the beginning. If you go back and look, she was narrating some portions, and I think those were necessary to kind of drive home further the relationship from Rue's perspective with Lexi and the perspective from Lexi about their relationship as well, and what like it was almost to me, like I'm just now like workshopping this thought as you're saying it and as we're talking about it. It was almost to me like Rue's life is continuing, right? Like she's that hummingbird, but like she doesn't even get we don't even really get a chance to see how other people perceive her often outside of her mother and her sister and Ali. So like what are her friendships? We're always just looking at Rue from this perspective of dealing with drugs. Let's look at her from the perspective of being a friend, of doing this. And I think that's why we got to see Rue and the audience smiling for a moment, because again, for me, I was like a little shook at her, laying there doing the drugs and them showing that in the play. But then I was like, we panned to Rue, and it was like, oh, okay. Rue kind of appreciates that in knowing that, like, okay, I'm addicted to certain things and I'm going through these withdrawals and this rehabilitation phase. You still see me as a human being. You still see me outside of that. And I think maybe that's what she gleaned from the play. So that was cool.
And I also, sorry, I also, it really showed us the dynamics at the friendship at the funeral when Rue was speaking. In the beginning, we didn't know the dynamics of how close Maddie and her Cassie was until Lexi like helped her pee in a cup. So when we saw that, it was like, oh, they really been fucking with her for a minute. And I especially like the dynamics of Maddie and Rue because it's not
Yes.
really spoken, but there's a lot of like subtle things that you're like, Maddie really fucks with her friends. Like she really is that supporter protector. And I really love that because it's not always the forefront of the whatever they're trying to show.
Another point for my girl Maddie in the friendship department. Love to see it, because I think also, now that I'm thinking about it, has Maddie ever even been part of dialogue regarding any negative kind of shade towards Rue using drugs? I feel like Maddie's the only one that's never really like even maybe even talked about it, because again, Maddie's probably like, everyone talks about this enough. She's just like, hi Rue, hi baby, how you doing Rue, hey Rue. Like Rue, she talks to Rue outside of the use of drugs, and I know that that's difficult because part of the lesson here is what happens when a person is addicted to drugs and how it affects everybody around them. But Maddie is able to just kind of like hug, like Renee I think said earlier. She was the only one that like hugged Rue when we know Rue ain't showered for like 15 days. She's like, Rue, hi, what are you, oh my god, what are you doing? So that beautiful friendship there is really nice too. V, welcome up, babe.
Thank you. Sorry I'm late. I just wanted to. I saw the title of the space and I laughed to myself because that episode
Y'all know I'm
just
fucking with y'all. I just yeah.
it was great. I will say though that I think what I loved most about this was up until now. Well, I know what I've sort of thought, and I know I've seen this throughout social medias. Lexi's this wallflower. She's kind of there, but she's a little bit behind the scenes, and it was nice to have her at the forefront and her using the play as her narrative voice. I love how we see a lot of these friendships, these core friendships depicted through her lens. And I found that she was very, and I'm sure others have said this, I know you alluded to this as well, a very like tasteful depiction of Rue, a very tasteful depiction of Maddie, I think as well, because we all know how Rue narrates Maddie, when she's first introduced in the show. We all know how everybody at the school views her. She's crazy, she's over the top, but this play really shows that side of her that I don't think a lot of people were aware of. Like the fact that her parents were fighting, the fact that she was staying over at Cassie and Lexi's place, that friendship, like when I saw that scene where Cassie and Maddie are sharing the bed and Maddie starts crying and Cassie's comforting her, my thought goes back to when Maddie tells Cassie, you know, bitch, you're my soulmate. Like, it just brings it all together, and you realize
Yes.
just how deep that friendship was and how much more it hurt Maddie to
Yes.
see and hear what was going down with Nate. And I don't know if anybody's touched on that scene. um,
We
the
have.
scene, yes, that honestly, I played that scene over, I think, at least two more times, because it was the height of high school. Like, as a theater kid, that was the height. That budget was extraordinary. That scene would have never passed any like any high school play, but just their use of imagery and the song choice, and Ethan did his thing. I thought it was perfect. I love how everybody had a good time with it. But I really like this for Lexi. Like, I really like the fact that she got to talk through the play. It was the most powerful tool that she could have used. And she was in her element, like directing people, yelling at people backstage, telling people to get in line. She had
Yes.
this planned out, and it was good to see her in charge, because for the longest, she's just sort of in the background. Okay, I'll do this for you, Rue. Okay, I'll do this for you, Cassie, Maddie, whatever. But this is her time to shine, and she gets to do it through other people. So I liked it.
Love that. Yes, absolutely. So let's talk about it, right? Because our girl Lexi Shakespeare, take some notes. I'm just kidding. And did y'all see that? Renee, could you please share the picture of Shakespeare or whoever it was? Who was it in that damn thing taking notes on Lexi?
It was
On Lex,
Shakespeare. Hold
it
on,
was
let me find
Shakespeare, right?
it.
I was like,
Was.
did they do a Socrates one or something? I don't know, but that's why I named it this, because I saw someone else tweet that Lin Manuel Miranda was shook, and I was just like dying laughing. This was before I even watched the episode, so I'm never too mad about the reactions. People I watch on the timeline are pretty good about not spoiling things, but still sharing what they feel. So I was just dying laughing, like, let me see what Lexi talking about here. So
I
let's talk about
shared
it though. Did you share it at the top? You can't find it.
it.
Just
Yep. No, I did.
okay.
I shared it on the top.
Okay, it hasn't loaded up yet. So this is why I named the space Shakespeare been real quiet since Lexi dropped her play. If you've been on Twitter, you get it. So let's talk about this, because we talked about the last act and how powerful it was, and what we didn't talk about was Nate's response to it too much. And I want to talk about Nate's response before we get into closing the space out with your favorite character in the play. We'll go around the room. Favorite character in the play, favorite reaction in the audience, and then what's happening with my son Fezco. I might even just cut that out of this space because I don't like what y'all are telling me. So I'm just going to ignore that and pretend I live in a good world where no one dies in my TV shows. But so Nate, we cut to Nate like grit, like clenching his fist, but also like messing with his nails when he's watching the scene, right, that Ethan so beautifully portrayed. And then we see once again Cassie comforting him, right? And then we see Rue just like Rue's hilarious in this. Rue's like looking over at him like, is he watching this? But she's like bobbing her head. Yo, that was pure fucking comedy, guys. I had a great time during the last act, and not only or the last act, but not only because of the last act of the play being hilarious, but like Rue bobbing her head like, okay, this shit fire, because that song is fire. But then Nate like losing his mind. Lexi was like, before they started this act and they were backstage, Lexi was like, this is it, this is the thing, this is the show, this is what we're doing. We see Maddie dying laughing. Maddie looks back at Nate, she's dying laughing, she's getting her thing, because like for me, I want Maddie to be happy. Like I know we have a lot of vitriol for Cassie and Nate, but I also just want us to be gentle with Maddie in these moments. Like I need my girl Maddie to get some sympathy, some empathy, some love, some care, some gentleness. I want us to direct a lot of energy for that. Like I need her to find some happiness, because I think it was UV or somebody else was saying like we're seeing how much it might have hurt. It might really, really hurt for Maddie to be going through these things and the decisions that she might make. And we talked about this in what we watch. We understood that the conversations around what Maddie might do were very, very binary. Is she going to beat her ass, or is she just going to go and be sad? And what we watch again was like, we were like, well, maybe both to a certain extent, maybe both at different times. And we were right. Like, we're seeing her, like, she's about to fight her, then she wants to talk to her, then she's crying, then she's looking to Minka Kelly's character, I forget the mom or whatever, for advice. Like, she's going through exactly what you might go through for such a deep connection with your best friend after all y'all have been through, to find out that you're fucking the man that she's like really trying to figure out if she's supposed to. Because remember what Maddie said about Nate, and it was when she was looking at Kat and Ethan. She was like, I don't know if I deserve that type of non-toxic love. And so Maddie's dealing with a ton of emotions right now. My girl just needs a little bit of like gentleness and comfort. So anyway, so we're I need a hero, and Ethan is eating on stage. Shout out to him. Lexi was very excited before he got on stage. Like, you got this, baby. We're about to do this. It's about to be the best. Lexi's mom is having the time of her life. That's my answer for my question. Lexi's mom in the theater, in the audience, was my favorite. My favorite performance tonight. I don't care. Maybe Sydney Sweeney's second, just for the horror scene in the end. But like Lexi's mom responding just like from a perspective of like, my daughter did a thing. I was like, that is so important to me. So, anyways, we go back to Nate, and he is literally stressed out. We are cutting back from Lexi and Nate now. Nate's stressing out. He's walking out of the damn audience. Cassie, stupid ass. Sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I projected a little bit there. Cassie ass runs after him for whatever reason, of course, because that's her man. We cut to Rue kind of like making like, ooh, looks like there's trouble in paradise there. And Lexi and Nate and Lexi and her second AD and everybody is just really, really excited. Oh, this is brilliant. This is fantastic. Oh, we killed it. We did that. Show's over. Nate has a conversation with Cassie about what the fuck that just made for him, what that just did for him, right? And I thought that was a very horrific and powerful scene. And to end on that, to be continued with Sydney Sweeney acting the fuck down, give her all the Emmys, we get that. So, how did y'all feel about that? How did y'all feel about, and I'm gonna just call on people at this point. How did y'all feel about who had the best performance in the play, who had the best reaction in the audience, and just kind of how we ended the episode? Because after that, that's when we talked to. Just before that is when we talked about Fez and Ashtray, and I'm gonna decide if we talk about that. Jaja, go ahead.
Okay, can y'all hear me? I'm in my car now.
Yeah, you're a little fuzzy, but we hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. Mom's reaction to her baby's play was my favorite. It kind of takes me back to where Rue's mom was telling her, basically, I'm going to put my energy into my youngest daughter because if you don't give a fuck, then I'm not going to give a fuck anymore.
Love
And
that.
it kind of gave me that, right? So her whole thing is Cassie left on her own accord, kind of like how Rue is ruining her own life, and she let her go. And so here she is supporting her baby's play, having no idea what the play is about, what's going on. So that was definitely my favorite. Um, Reaction. I'm sorry. What was the first question? I think I skipped over one.
No, the reaction in or the best performance in the play. I just want to
Oh,
properly give the awards and plays that you as you should in the high school theater,
hands
and then just the
down
best
to
audience.
Ethan.
Okay, period.
Ethan having 5 different characters. I mean, I was living for it, and it kind of also made me think of like how I understand that Kat, he's vanilla for her, but he was going through a lot. Like he was juggling a lot. She just dumped him. Didn't even consider that he's juggling 5 roles in the high school play. As a former theater kid, that's a lot. You know.
Not all the
Um,
former theater kids in here. I love this for us. Look at y'all. Y'all all in theater.
I also want to just make a side note that did anyone else watch that and kind of in the back of their minds were like, man, like the budget for this is kind of crazy. As for a high school play, someone on Twitter made a joke about how it feels weird that Abbott Elementary can't get new textbooks, but Euphoria High can put on this production. And I'm going to just leave that.
First of all, speaking of Abbott Elementary, we're going to talk about this show right after this. I'm going to close this space. We're going to talk about Abbott Elementary after it airs. But speaking of budget and stuff, we all agree, yes, that budget was insane. Because them set pieces with Miss Mama's walking around in that fucking turnstile or whatever you call it, I'm like, damn, those were expensive. Okay, Miss Mama's, you got the money for it. But no, speaking of Abbott Elementary, first of all, don't sleep. My guy Tariq, aka Zach Fox, that was a great performance on stage for those little kids, and that was a great that was a great lesson in theater. And I'm just playing, but yeah, no, I had a good time with that. Thank you, Jaja Wall. Go ahead.
All right. So I mean, I might get the second question wrong here, but my favorite person to actually watch and kind of their reaction was Jules. I thought it was kind of cool, just kind of how this was actually her almost because I don't know if everyone really knows her situation, right? Of what actually happened and transpired that time or that night or whatever. But I thought it was kind of cool just watching her reaction on it. Um,
Yeah. Okay.
and how again her whole situation is kind of out there, and as much as she wanted to kind of privatize it and keep it in house, well, here you go, because we're exposing Nate, so to speak, and it also kind of exposes her as well. And what was the other one? Is who was the best? What now? Sorry.
Performance in the play, audience reaction.
Oh, by far, I'm gonna have to go Cassie. I thought like she was well composed because she was in a really weird spot, right? Like this is family. This is her sister. Her sister's putting on this great performance that everyone's enjoying, but at the expense of quote quote her boyfriend or you know what I'm saying, someone that she actually loves, and it's making fun of them, making fun of her, making fun of everyone. So she almost has to like manage her emotions, obviously, right? Like, and then here's her mom enjoying it, so she's just in a whole different realm. It's like where she's gonna go with this. Is she's gonna go with Nate, and obviously as Nate walks out at the end, is she gonna
Right.
follow him? She does, or is she going to actually enjoy her sister having a voice and actually using
Mm,
that in a way that she deems it acceptable, which is from a cinematic perspective. And then also you look and you see you're like, mom over here is enjoying this. Okay, like what's going on here? What's my choice? So
right.
I thought she played it really, really honestly. I mean, probably the
Oh,
best she
oh,
probably could, right? Because I would have been
yeah,
like, yo, what the fuck is going
yeah. No,
on? Like, you know
Sydney,
what I mean?
Sydney.
Like,
We didn't even
yeah,
talk about the scene where Sydney was crying in the mirror and having to, compose herself the first time she walked out. She walked out twice, first on her own and second with Nate. And yeah, I don't know, guys, but the girls need to take notes on Sydney Sweeney. Just so y'all know, and Renee kind of told me this by following her, Sydney Sweeney is a trained fighter. She works on cars. She's an actress, obviously, and she's a model, and she has great titties. Good for her. Shout out to Sydney Sweeney in every perspective, quite frankly. She's extremely talented, multifaceted. Love to see it, quite frankly.
They are
what
Coco,
else?
definitely gunning for
What else
her
has
in
she
the
been in?
Emmy this
Sorry.
year for sure.
what did you say, Jaja? And then Wall,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was saying they are definitely gunning for her to win the Emmy this year for
She
sure.
needs to, because there's a lot of conversations, and we won't dwell on this because I need to wrap up this space. But there was a lot of conversations around what it means for women to be nude on shows and why, she was like, there's a lot of commentary on like, oh, we're seeing more of Cassie and or Cassie's a great actress and or Sydney Sweeney's a great actress. She was like, I was all up in season one doing the same thing. But I guess, once nudity is presented, it's like, oh, we're not looking at you and how you're acting. We're looking at your tits or whatever the hell it is. I'm using that term. I don't use that term, but I know that people use that term in that way. So that's what I'm saying that for. And so I think it's really beautiful that I see the discourse around her performance in these episodes. And I just feel very vindicated because I have been trying to get people to love horror for forever. And I feel like people pigeonhole horror into this kind of idea like, oh, it's just like scary. And like, I don't want to see it because it's scary. But from a cinematic standpoint, horror films are fucking beautiful. They're just amazing. Just the sound and everything. I sound like a broken record. If you've been in the space, you've heard me say this. But for the new people, horror is beautiful. And I'm kind of like feeling a little affirmed and vindicated with everyone continuing to watch Euphoria. There's a lot of horror shots that they're doing. There's a lot of fundamental elements of like film that they're using in these shows and I'm in these episodes. I'm just like, yes, like this is how you fucking do it. Like having her breathing with her eyes open and like just looking terrifying into like what this world might be without Nate, right? Because she's gonna walk back into the audience seeing in this intermission with, I'm assuming, there's gonna be part two of a play. It's like that's horrifying. That's like my girl is acting down. Okay, put her in a horror film. I think Renee had said that in the space a long time ago, and she keeps showing us that she can. Coco a la mode,
Hey,
welcome.
thank you. I just wanted to chime in and give my favorite audience reaction. And for me, it's Maddie because I feel like it was a redemption moment for her. I don't think anyone knows that Nate was holding a gun to her face and then his on top of her, and how he got the tape. I think that is something that she's pretty much kept to herself. And I can only imagine that she's feeling a little paranoia, a little anxiety, a little like shaken in the aftermath of that. And it was a little comedic relief for her. And I just liked that for her.
Oh my God, thank you for saying that. Absolutely. I thought it was hilarious too. And I was glad because Maddie deserves healing. And part of your healing process sometimes include restitution, and sometimes it includes knowing that your enemies are struggling and failing.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean that you're a good or bad person. I don't think that's even the conversation. The conversation is, is your healing process, being made a little bit easier? And Lexi helped her healing process. Like, Maddie, I know
Yeah.
you're going through it, baby, and I'm glad that you get to see this. Okay, period.
Per.
Okay, Renee, go ahead, baby.
So I did want to say something quick about Maddie. I think Maddie is going to be leaving because of that conversation she had with the mom when she was like, "Yeah, he doesn't know. I'm afraid to tell him." She was like, "Enough to stay here forever." And Maddie's like, "Absolutely the fuck not." So I think Maddie, she's like, "I've had enough of this shit. I need to restart. I've
Period.
learned, I've learned my lessons. I've learned all I need to learn. Let's fucking go." So I think Maddie's gonna get some peace. Um, Everybody says it's true. Ethan was the best. He gave us drama. He gave us comedy. He gave us sincerity, like when he played Lexi's and Cassie's dad and
Dad,
mom dancing. What a
right?
beautiful scene. Like their mom had to start crying. He gave us like, gay icon.
Okay, period.
So, just Ethan, he needs an Emmy in high school and, maybe an Emmy nod, like in real life. Um,
Yes.
and for the best audience reaction, I teeter between.
Come on, Renee.
Okay, so for different reasons. I liked Rue in the sense that like it was like Rue was actually enjoying herself, enjoying the thing that was happening, like seeing herself in a different light, seeing herself redemption. Also, what's nice about childhood friendships is like when you feel like you've lost your way, people who have known you and loved you like for such a long time can connect with you, and like these sort of like intimate moments that other people who they just meet you later on, like they don't know where you came from. Lexi was
Mm.
to like remind you of like, no, like this is who you are. Like it was almost low key like her find your way back moment.
Oh, love that.
And
Thank you for saying that. Yes.
like I love that. Like when like Rue got to see like, damn, like the nice thing I said to my friend that my high ass was saying to her.
She
It
remembered.
it
Yeah.
really like actually made her feel better about herself. I did like that Maddie got some justice because honestly, I would love it if I could just see my ops get exposed.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
it doesn't take away the pain, but it's like, yes, I get to laugh at your face, nigga. That's what the fuck you get. And then we've already talked. We've also already talked about it, Cassie. Like Sydney Sweeney has bodied the role of Cassie, like the when she was just like smiling in the mirror, looking deranged and like practicing smiling and like, I'm not gonna cry, I'm not gonna cry, I'm not gonna cry, I'm not gonna ruin my makeup. And then the way she was like breathing, I said, okay, I was like, Sydney Sweeney, she could either be the killer or she could be the one about to be killed.
Okay. And know her range. And it's beautiful too because that scene, I'm not gonna give y'all homework because I'm not that head ass, but I will say that the Sydney Sweeney scene you've seen in other movies, you've seen in other movies and TV shows, and Twitter brought up one of them, which was the Margot Robbie in the mirror scene. But I'm gonna give you, there's a Gone Girl scene very similar to that. I'm just saying that if I were to find out later that Sydney Sweeney had to study a few of the girls that came before her with the mirror scene and going through emotions, I wouldn't be shocked because that is powerful acting. Nikias, welcome up here. Did you want to answer the questions? I know you're always lovely and staying in the audience listening, so I'm glad you came up to speak.
Oh yeah, I'm just mostly been here to listen and learn. Y'all are killing it as always. I would say as far as favorite performance, like Ethan has to win it. And I would also say like I'm glad that Ethan actually got some spotlight because I feel like he's just kind of been tethered to Kat's storyline for most of this.
Mm,
So it's
mm-hmm.
see him actually get to showcase like who he is a little bit, and him
I
being
love.
able to like multiple roles in that play just kind of speaks to the talent that he has. Like maybe it's just me not watching closely enough, but like I just had no real feel for who he was throughout this entire show, really. Outside of
Yeah,
hey, him and Kat are, um,
together, and he was gaslit by her.
yeah, like that's that's kind of been it. Like okay, so he does have some other stuff going on. He is like
Yes.
a character worth exploring more. So I wonder if we see more of him in season 3. But like that was my favorite part of that. The audience, like Sue's, just killed me.
I'm telling you, she was my favorite.
That was hilarious. Like when Ethan came out impersonating her, and she just lost in the audience. Like, you know what? That's what a parent is supposed to look like. Like, absolutely be the loudest one in there.
Yes, like come on, if you put on a play and you know the risk you took, you want your mama there, just like, oh my god, baby, yes, good job. Like, oh my god, showing the problematic homophobia. Oh my god, great job. Like the entire time Susie was like, oh my god, my baby's a director. I love that. It's just, I don't know, like this is a very white show. Can I just say it? This is a very white show. And it reminded me of like how a black mom might be. Did it, you know what I'm saying? Like that's why I just felt so close and loving. I'm like, this is how a black mom is. Like we will go up for each other, and my mama will support anything. My mom be in these spaces like, great job, baby. You did such a great job. Your voice is so pretty and so nice. She don't even know what I'm doing. She don't even know how to make money. She's like, oh my god, you did so great. Good job. So I don't know. That was just really cute to see like that. And I thank you for saying that about Ethan, because this might be that episode where we get to see these characters that are always in the shadows of other characters, but we get to see them shine. Because that's quite frankly what Lexi was. So I love that. Do you think that something's gonna happen to Fez and Ashtray, Nikias? Just say no so that I can be okay and we can move forward.
If I speak, I'm in big trouble.
Damn it. Okay. V, go ahead, babe.
So, in terms of favorite performance, as much as I loved Ethan's performance, I'm going to give it to Lexi because she not only
Yes.
acted in the play, but she wrote and directed that.
Okay, she is a Issa Rae, honey, and know her.
Yes.
Okay.
Like
Period.
and if this is what she's producing in high school, in air quotes, the sky's the limit for her. And I also really liked her performance because she I think she used this play as an opportunity to say a lot of the things to like Rue, to Maddie, to those around her that she hasn't been able to say in person. Like that opening scene with Rue, yes, it's a reenactment of what happened after her father's death, but using all of that to talk about their friendship, I think it was her opportunity in some ways to write like that love letter to her best friend. Um, and I think that watching Rue's reaction sort of solidified that. She was proud. I think Rue was really proud of Lexi, even though they've sort of drifted apart. This brought them together, and the fact that she was there to watch and her reactions to me showed that she was engaged and she was hearing what Lexi was trying to tell her, even if Lexi couldn't say it to her in person in the many other scenes that they've had together. And then
Right.
in terms of my favorite reaction, it's a tie between Suze Howard, because that woman is self aware and can laugh at herself. And in some ways, Rue is the same way because she could have reacted in anger to how she was portrayed in the play, but she didn't. She smiled, she remembered her dad, I think, for the first time in a really positive light. Every other time we've seen her, thinking about the memory she had with her dad, it's always sort of led to this spiraling where she ends up doing drugs, or it just sort of leads from one dark place to the next. But this is the first time it's light. And so I give the favorite reaction a tie between Lexi's mom, Suze Howard, and Rue, because they're both aware of themselves and they're aware of how they're portrayed, but they're cool with it. Suze Howard is laughing the whole time. She's pleased to see herself, even as crazy as she is. Like, she's pleased to see that somebody sees her and has put her in this play, and it's her daughter, and she's proud of her. And it was just nice to see her supporting Lexi in this way, because I think for the longest, I don't know if she's been fully aware of how her
Right.
behavior and sort of how things went down with their dad, like how that affected Lexi. The focus has always been on Cassie. And so I think it was nice for her to see all of that through Lexi's eyes.
And the show has been building on that beautifully. We've had numerous conversations throughout this season where we've quietly like cut to Lexi and her reaction to what's going on around her. We've had some dialogue where Lexi was like, I'm always in the shadows, or I'm always behind, or I'm always like talking, I'm the last one to be like spoken to or figured out. My opinion matters the least, and all this kind of stuff. And so it's really beautiful that they've kind of just, if you go back and if anybody ever revisits this episode or the entire season, you'll kind of see how they've 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 laid the building blocks up to this episode. And I just want to say that notice what, for me, the two themes, and there's a little shade in here, but shade with love. Like, the thing that happens here that I think I took away from this episode was that self-awareness is key. And this play will not bother you if you have already reconciled with who you are and how you affect the people around you. And I say that, and I've realized that y'all see that too, because you see that Rue had a good time watching this play. And that's because she's going through these moments where she has been exposed at her best and at her worst. She has reconciled some of her emotions. She's doing the work. She apologized to Ali. She recognizes things. She had a conversation with her mother, right? And so these things are happening. And so Nate is kind of struggling with self-awareness and social awareness. And so I just like, in a way, I'm just like, these things won't bother you. The Lexis of the world and the plays that come out of the world won't bother you if you've accepted who you are and how it affects other people. And that's why you got Cassie over there losing her fucking mind too, because she's really trying to figure out what the fuck she got going on. But that's also why I think there's an age difference in the response too, where why you can see the mom, who was also in the play, some business about hers that may or may not needed to be shared with other people at school. She, as an adult, has also kind of stepped into who she was. And that shows how, like, maybe teenagers aren't going to respond properly to it because they haven't had that experience in life. So that's one of, like, the main things I took away. Like, looking at yourself in a mirror, looking at your life portrayed by someone that you may or may not have recognized as paying attention to you, you can find out how you feel and who you are and where you are in your journey if based on how you feel about that. So I love that. And the other point that I wanted to make was that, like, whomst among us wouldn't like our ops to be exposed? Okay, let's just celebrate Maddie for a moment. Like, whomst among us wouldn't like to quickly just see, so this is how you are. And so, and just get a little bit of, like, I don't know, respite or just a little bit of joy and seeing, like, oh, okay, I get that's what you fucking get, Nate. Maybe it shouldn't be this way that you should be exposed because this is wrong. But that's what you fucking get, Nate, for fucking my best friend. And you see how close we were because Nate saw those moments. Nate saw the moments and where Cassie and Maddie were closer too. I think that's what we need to recognize. Everybody is seeing all of these moments. And so this is very fucking powerful. Like, I'm really excited to see what the next episodes are and what season 3 looks like, because now everybody's business is out there. And Lexi might get her ass beat, but maybe not. I don't know. Maybe not. Go ahead, Sapio.
Yeah, I think for me, my favorite character is definitely Lexi as well. I mean, there's nothing like a true triple threat. And then not only that, but to keep your composure and your poise when, your pseudo boyfriend isn't showing up. So there's also like an air of disappointment there, but you're still doing what you do. I mean, it's a lot. There's a lot. You got to worry about how people are going to react. I mean, it's a lot. So I think that she is so far doing wonderful. As we know, there's definitely a second act coming, but for right now, she's doing a great job. And I think that my favorite reactions definitely had to have been Maddie and Kat. I mean, I just love Kat just kind of looking at Maddie like, girl, I don't know what the fuck is going on. Like, what are they doing? And Maddie being like, girl, is this about us? And it's just like, those are real, like, that's a real, but also coming to appreciate it towards the end, like, and giving Lexi her props, you know what I mean? Like, understanding the act of courageousness that writing that play and kind of being, living her truth and committing to her truth is really good.
Yes.
And I love that. I love that what you said, Peach, about, the characters that are not, typically getting the attention kind of coming out of the shadows and getting sustained by the light of the theater, right? And I
Oh,
think
I'm
that
obsessed.
yeah, that people in theater can feel that, right? Like that is, truly their time to shine. They normally are the less appreciated ones, obviously the more eclectic ones, the ones that are a little bit, counter to whatever the popular culture is and whatever environment they're in. So yeah, I think that was again just a very, and that kind of goes back to the statement I made before about people in Euphoria being fun houses, and I think that in fun house mirrors rather, and I think that in this episode, like the sexual psychodrama scene with the daddy definitely showed that, and how the characters were morphing into one another, and then this play, this use of doppelganger and this use of doubles, you know what I mean, to kind of like push this narrative and give this alternate side of the story. I mean, I just, Sam Levinson is definitely a weirdo and he's definitely problematic where he's problematic, but unfortunately that still seems to be a winning formula for creating great content and for, making really provocative work. So I don't know, we're just gonna have to figure out a way to, reconcile with that. But
I love the way you said that. Bars. I wouldn't even use content. This is mastery. This is art, baby. This is art. Let's not even dilute it. This is art. He's doing a damn thing. And like if you watch the inside the episode afterwards, it's like inside the episode, right? Because like there was an episode within the episode. There was a performance, there was a theatrical performance within that. And it's so interesting because I'm watching it. And do y'all remember the moment where Lexi, as a director, is also mean to the Hallie behind the scenes? And she's not mean, but she says something to criticize Hallie, and Hallie starts crying. And she's like, "Oh my god, are you crying? This is just a no, baby. Keep up. Like, I'm just that girl." So I really appreciate y'all giving Lexi, because that was my answer. My best performance was Lexi. Miss Mamas is a writer, director, showrunner, and lead actress in her motherfucking performance, okay? In her motherfucking play. We love to see it. That takes range. Although it also takes range for Ethan to play Nate, a mommy. Who else did he play? A daddy. He played
A
their daddy.
photographer.
He played the like, okay,
and he was
like
really playing Sam Levinson. Yeah, when he was the photographer, he was
he was
really
playing
mimicking Sam. Yeah,
See,
right. Like he
no,
went
so
in.
know the dolls in their moments of like, the Maud Apatow's writer, director, lead actress, showrunner Issa Rae, Lexi on her Issa Rae, but also Ethan just like being given all these parts and these lines. That's a lot. Like he didn't get it confused. He put on like these high schoolers are very talented. Good for them. I'm curious to see where they go to college. To be honest, like what y'all doing? What y'all gonna do? Because y'all are talented.
Yeah.
I do want to say that I guess I did predict this episode because Nakia's shady ass just retweeted, and I think he said that did that because of what I said in the space. But this play was basically like asking the question: if you see at the top, do you know why people don't like you? And so it's just like, again, in these moments of you seeing yourself portrayed through someone's eyes that you may or may not care about what they think about, or you may have never, if whether you care or you don't, you never recognize that they had an assessment of who you are and how you might affect those other people around you. And I was being shady when I tweeted this in 2020 because I just saw a lot of stuff. And I'm like, I wonder if people know why people don't like them. Like, part of your self awareness and social awareness exercise should be to really kind of look at, do you know how people see you? Or do you know, like, I know that you want to be liked and you should be liked and everyone wants to be liked. That's not a problem. But do you know why some people decide not to like you?
Well, and I
That's
think
good
that's
information.
I think that's like an important thing though, Peach. Like, you have to also say that, and recognize and embrace that it's a decision. People do make decisions and choices about how they feel about you, and that you'll never have control over. So at the
Correct.
end of the day, you really can only and should really never give a fuck about how you're felt, because all you really got to worry about is keeping your intentions in alignment with your personal integrity and, morals and whatever your value system is. Because if you live in alignment with that, then everything else is kind of just going to have to fall into place, because you cannot control people's interpretations of your behaviors. And oftentimes it is also true that people project, you know what I mean? So a lot of this is why, again, I say like her synopsis of Maddie and her giving her that grace in the play and explaining her own biases against Maddie were important, because Maddie is not harmful, but she wanted her to be harmful because Maddie reflected on her the ways in which she was insecure. So it's an
Yes.
important conversation. And I think it is important to know, if you're not liked, why you're not liked. But
Yeah,
I don't think that the aspect that it should like serve your self awareness is to
right.
like necessarily have you like alter anything. But I
Exactly.
definitely think that you should be aware for sure.
It was my little quiet social study because whenever you guys have time, we're going to close out in 1 minute. Whenever you have time, go look at some of the responses. It's actually pure comedy in a way, but it really just gives you a lens into like you're saying, you're not responsible. You should not want everybody to like you. You're not responsible for how you're perceived by, people that you may or may not even know exist, right? Those parasocial relationships and that matter. But also, the people that you care and love about, that you care about and love, those people's perspectives should matter to a certain extent, and maybe not to the extreme of altering who you are, but just recognizing and reconciling with what that might mean for you and the relationships that you form in your life. And so I say that to say, and I think that's why Nakia Shady has brought it up, but I think that's what this play is showing. The responses in the audience, we're kind of seeing like, okay, how far have you reconciled with who you are with the people that you care about and how they perceive you, the people that you care about, right? Geraldo, welcome, babe. I know we about to close out. I love when you jump in. I know you gotta jump in late, but what's up, babe?
Hi, sorry, I have a night class at this time, but
No, I
I just
know.
wanted to say that somebody recently just mentioned about how like this episode brought characters that are usually in the background to like the foreground, and I wanted to bring that in relation to like Gia's character in the sense of like we finally learn a little bit more about what Gia's going through, and I put Gia and Lexi in the same boat in terms of like they are the forgotten sister, right? They are the sister that lives in the shadow of the older sister. Lexi lives in the shadow of Cassie because of like Cassie's pretty or like perceived to be prettier. This popular girl. Gia's in the background of Rue because of her issues with addiction. So I like that we got that little snippet with the mom, even though she was showing a lot of tough love, saying like, "Oh, Gia's not fine. Gia's failing class. Gia's going to detention.
And of
Gia,
course and I think the
yeah,
most powerful part of that was, of course, you wouldn't know that, right? She was
yeah,
like, "Oh, I'm sure she's fine, but yeah, tell me more about what you know about your sister, Rue." And it was kind of like just there was a point proven there. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, that exactly that. And somebody mentioned about like holding a mirror to yourself, and I thought a lot of when somebody mentioned that, I thought a lot about that scene with Cassie in the mirror, that creepy scene where she was just like looking at herself and like this like version of herself that she's created, this like very Maddie-fied version of herself, and she's just like crying and unhappy and like just looking at like you know the way that the play is presenting her, and like she's in the mirror like thinking about like probably thinking about like, oh, is this really like how people perceive me? Is this how I perceive myself? Like, what does this say about me, kind of thing, as she's like crying and trying to smile and act like she's happy when she's not. um yeah, and even like Nate, like when you like again like that whole mirror thing, like he stormed out, right? And it's related to like the tweet, like, do you know why people don't like you? You know what I'm saying?
Hmm. The other aspect of, do you know why people don't like you, Geraldo? And I'll let you finish. Is that you might know that people don't like you, and you might assume that people don't like you for this thing. And it's really not this thing, Nate. It's this thing, right? And so that's the other part of that question, is not that recognizing that people don't like you, but why. And sometimes we think people don't like us because we're this. And it's really like, no, it's actually because you're this, right? Oh, you don't like me because I'm the prettiest girl in high school. No, it's because you're a piece of shit. Oh, you don't like me because I'm the best guy on the football team. And it's like, no, Nate, it's because you're awful to everybody around you. And in an attempt to reconcile whatever you have with who you are and your sexuality and in your relationships with your parents and your relationship with your siblings and women, you're awful to everybody else. Remember, Nate was like awful to McKay in that New Year's party. Did you fuck her? Did you fuck her? Oh yeah, you fucked her. And it was just like, he was like, yo, chill, like calm down. So it's definitely one of those, like, yeah, definitely one of, Nate, do you know why people don't like you? Because it's not because you might be a little bit queer. It's not because of this. It's not because of that, right? Like, those are the questions there too. So thank you, Geraldo, for making that parallel. Did you have anything else to say? Go ahead.
Just like I'm a cinematography nerd, just from like a visuals perspective. Like, I love the fact that the play would go in and out from like real events and the play. So like, I don't know if you guys caught that. I was really confused when it was the funeral and then Lexi is looking at the doubles and then talking to Rue. I was like, wait, what's going on? And it's like it's doing that whole back and forth. First of all, the budget of that school's theater department is insane. Wow, like, because that production was expensive. Um, so yeah,
I love
I
that
like, yeah.
15 of us have said that. Love that for us. At this point now, before I close out the space, how much do y'all think that play costs? Because everybody's saying budget, budget, budget. How much do y'all think it costs? Let's throw out some numbers. Don't tweet it or don't say it in the space. Tweet me hashtag what we watch and follow what we watch film TV and let me know what. Give me a ballpark number. The theater kids of the world and everybody that is like, this was an expensive ass fucking play. Tweet me how much you think this play costs and why Eastland High. What is it? East Highland? What is it? What is this? What is this high school even called? East Highland? Eastland?
East Highland.
East Highland. How much money are they putting in the theater department? Because they got a lot of money for that, and I think that's a resounding that's a consensus here. So, okay, I adore you guys. Thank you so much for talking what we watch film TV. Thank you for talking Euphoria with me. Y'all are hilarious. Please know why people don't like you, and I hope that you never have to watch a play of yourself if you haven't reconciled with who you are and how you affect those around you. I do not wish a Nate situation onto your life. Thank you guys. Talk to you later. Tap in with whatwewatch.net. Bye.